Reconnection successful. This is what my friend said when I shared a book. If you want nuclear grade cringe, within how that all goes together, I just know that eh, okay. I mean, whatever, whatever. Hang on a sec. I gotta check. See if it skipped. All right, everything's good. Everything's fine. Everything's beautiful. The world is a beautiful place, and I'm no longer afraid to. I think that's the name of the band. Is that it? Is, I remember them all the time because I remember that they have a very long name, and I can't listen to their album because it's just so long. Yeah, that's what it is. They have they have a recent album. Um, the ones I remember are Harmlessness and uh Whenever If Ever. I haven't listened to them in a long time. Let me just click on one of them. Yeah, it's this song. You can't live there forever. That song gets stuck in my head all the fucking time. Just just that very simple acoustic riff right there. It's very nice. Anyways, this video has been hyped up for me. I've been told that it's dangerous levels of cringe, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is like the thing I was talking about in the last one. People are like so stuck in alternate realities that they like have issues with other people's interpretations of the world, like very strong issues with other people's interpretations of the world. So like one of the current examples is going to be like I think the Kyle Rittenhouse incident is one of those that's like really big because you have Rittenhouse who some people would say he is a cold-blooded killer because he shot 3 people in Kenosha. But then people like me look at the videos and we're like, well, a lot of people in the area had guns. So the fact that he is also armed to protect himself is not like insane. Like it might be insane outside of America, but like this is crazy even for America to have like so many people on the side of the road armed, and it's not like specifically related to the Second Amendment. Cuz I know some people like bring up these people that were in Michigan, I believe, carrying guns around their state capital because they were allowed to, and they were in a peaceful protest. I'm not joking when I say peaceful protest. I mean a genuinely peaceful protest where no fires were started, nothing happened. People were just carrying guns, and they were told they could go around and take photos with their firearms in hand. None of the firearms had like magazines in them. It's just all above board. But this is like completely different where like people are literally on the side of the road, lefties and righties together, waving their guns around and threatening each other and standing off. A lot of people had guns that night. So to like point at Rittenhouse specifically, like that's a major factor in his case. That's not really major. But what is major is like the moment everything starts, when he puts out the fire, the literal dumpster fire, the fucking protesters, I mean, the peaceful protesters, not rioters, peaceful protesters, they lit a dumpster fire and were pushing it into a gas station. Peacefully, of course. I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm not joking about them actually doing this. We know it happened. That video is somewhere. I haven't been able to find it again, though, but I have seen the video. So, they're pushing a literal dumpster fire into a gas station. Rittenhouse, or someone who looks very similar to Rittenhouse, puts that fire out with the fire extinguisher. And we know that based on like the current the recent hearing that we had on the Rittenhouse case, the prosecution was trying to say like, oh, you don't need to put out arson fires. You should have authority before you do that, which is absolutely hilarious. So that's another thing too. Like the prosecution's trying to dig up all the dirt they can on Rittenhouse. Their case is that Rittenhouse is a violent vigilante that puts himself into situations where he doesn't belong. And it's absolutely bonkers. It's absolutely hilarious because they're like, look at this violent vigilante. Guess what he did once? He got into a fist fight in a high school parking lot. Okay. That isn't that horrible, and that's like unrelated. Teenagers getting into a fucking fight in a parking lot. Okay. Has nothing to do with Rittenhouse's incident in Kenosha where he shot people. Another time, he mouthed off about wanting to shoot people and then called 911 to have the situation handled. Literally watching the store get fucking robbed at gunpoint. He's like, man, I'd shoot those people. If I had my gun, oh, I'd totally shoot those people. Bad choice of words, but his actions, okay, that's how it goes. Actions speak louder than words. He didn't go all violent vigilante on them. He called the police. And that's what we should recommend. That should be commendable. He called the police on these criminals who were robbing the CVS at gunpoint. So thank you. That's a good thing. And then you get to the day of the shooting. This is going to be where like the defense comes in, because there's so much with that shooting that's just amazing. Like it's big. It's like it's going to be a big case, because if Rittenhouse goes to jail for this, if he's not, like, if he goes to jail for something, that's one thing. If he gets put away for a triple homicide that night, that is beyond like insane. Because you have, first off, you have a pedophile, multi-offense pedophile, who grabbed Rittenhouse's gun before he got shot. And that's just something you don't do. Rittenhouse is fleeing the scene of this crime, and Rosenbaum grabs Rittenhouse's gun. That is like Rittenhouse is fleeing. Rosenbaum grabs the gun and then gets shot. Which, if you wanted to get shot ever, try and grab someone's gun. Like if you see someone with a gun who is not walking towards you, who is not bothering you, go try and grab their gun from them. It'll end perfectly well. Just like pulling a knife on a police officer ends really well, or pointing a gun at a police officer ends really well. You know, hey, works out pretty good. You will not wake up from it. Best sleep of your life. I guarantee it. Or you'll wake up, which is that's gonna be awful. And then you have the other two shootings that night. It would have been a triple homicide, but it was 3 people they shot, double homicide, and then one grievous injury. I don't know if grievous is the right word. But yeah, the guy that was hitting him with the skateboard, clearly, clearly, like risking blunt force trauma, clearly, uh, agitating someone with a gun, which is a bad idea. Don't mess with people that have a gun unless you're like running away from them. Like, don't go towards the person with the gun unless you want to get shot. I don't know what else to say. Like, it's very baffling. And you have all these people like they'll watch the Rittenhouse videos and they'll still tell you that he did it in coldly, that he did it out of his villainous heart. He's an evil person that wasn't defending himself. You have people like Lance from the Surfs, which I I will say, like, I like this guy way more than Lance from the Surfs. This guy is doing everyone so many more favors than Lance is. Okay, and I pray that Adam something never goes as slimy or as scummy as Lance. I couldn't figure out like the through line of the last video because like I don't know, it's connections that I can never make in a scripted format because I would be too busy like figuring out like how does it transition. Like I know I've just spent a million years talking about the Rittenhouse case, and that's just because I'm obsessed with it at the moment. Cause it's coming up real soon. It comes up November 1st. It's gonna last 2 weeks. It's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be so much fun to watch. My hero, uh, American hero Kyle Rittenhouse. So as far as that goes, um, two things on the Rittenhouse case I will finish off with. One, don't chase people that have guns in their possession, even if they're not supposed to have the gun, unless they are shooting it or something. They are not really like doing anything to bother you. Just the fact that they have a gun, okay, that could be a tense situation. Now I live in the middle of fucking nowhere. I see people strapped all the fucking time. They don't have long guns, but they always have a Glock or something on them. So I'm desensitized to the whole notion of people being fucking strapped. Okay, everyone's strapped in my neck of the woods. Go to the grocery store. Look out! I got my fucking cat. I don't, but other people do. So that's just how it is. And I've just grown desensitized to it. Probably, I think it's fine. I'm not scared. I'm fine with it. Is like I'm not coping over here. I'm genuinely like there's only been like one time I was ever scared of the fact that someone owns a gun. And it was a former coworker. And it's only because like the way she has always acted. It's not because she's a woman, it's because she's absolutely fucking bonkers. Like I would not be surprised if she brought it up to the place I used to work at and used it on the people that she hated cuz she was just I don't know what her deal was. I don't know what her deal was. She's just bonkers. Like she's the only person that scares me knowing that she has a gun. I can't I'm not going to say names. I'm just saying it's one person. One person. And I know lots of men that own guns. I know lots of women that own guns. And out of all of them, it's just one person that kind of worries me. And even then, it's more of a like jocular worry. It's not like I'm really, really genuinely terrified of what this person's going to do with the gun. And more, that person's crazy. I can't believe they're allowed to own a firearm. It's a joke more than anything else. But in general, I'm fine with people being strapped with a gat or whatever. You can have a gun on you. I don't mind. But that being said, if someone has a gun and they're not shooting at you, one, if someone has a gun and you're worried about it, run away. Just go the other way. Go the other way. Don't worry about it. Just just get away from it if it worries you. Two, don't go chasing after a person with a gun. Don't try to grab a gun that someone else has because that'll end badly. And three, don't bring a skateboard to a fucking gunfight. Like that's not gonna end well either. You're gonna beat someone over the head with your skateboard. They're gonna shoot you in the heart. It'll be too late. Oh, and don't fake surrender. Then point your pistol at the person that lowered their firearm. I'm so glad that guy got his arm blown off, honestly. Like, that was just like, I'm so glad he didn't die because now he can face punishment for what he did. I'm so glad he's alive to tell the story of how he really wished he would have blown that kid's brains out. Okay, after he fake surrendered and then drew his gun. Jesus, like what a piece of shit. And some people live in an alternate reality where they think that man was trying to be a hero. They think that these people that got shot by Kyle Rittenhouse are a hero, and that's the entire point I'm trying to make. It took me 20 minutes to get there. See, people have such. So now that I've worked my way around at the 18-minute 30-second mark, I can tell you what I was trying to say. I have a feeling this video is going to be like the last one, where we have such varied lived experiences with America and the American political systems that it's going to be like the Kyle Rittenhouse thing. Some people think Kyle Rittenhouse is an American hero that stood up for himself using his Second Amendment rights, going above and beyond what he had to do in a self-defense case. He already used his duty to flee and all these other things, and he didn't shoot any bystanders on accident or anything. He only got the 3 people that assaulted him. And, you know, it's a shame that they had to die, but I'm glad that the kid's alive. He would have died otherwise. I genuinely believe that, and I I don't know. It's just it's hard to put a value on human lives, but it's like it's a hard calculation. But I look at the people that he shot, and I'm like, I'll take the Rittenhouse kid over these people, honestly. Like, it's baffling. I'm on Rick Law's side of it. I've been watching his streams about the stuff, but you know, some people think those 3 that Kyle shot are heroes because that's their lived experience. Those 3 people were heroes. Just like some people think the riots we've had in the past year or so, you know, were peaceful protests that got a little fiery. And just like I think that January 6th was a mostly peaceful protest. Some people think it was the newest 9/11. You know, so it's such a like varied like amount of alternate realities. Now I'll be genuine about January 6th right here. When I saw that a bunch of fucking boomers were just stumbling around the White House, I was laughing my ass off. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? It was hilarious to me. Like, I laughed. I will be perfectly honest. That's all I did. I thought it was fucking hilarious. And now, like, people are calling it worse than 9/11. They're calling it worse than 9/11. Do you remember where you were on January 6th, 2021? When all the boomers when all the boomers just stumbled into the White House and played pretend. It's so great. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. It was hilarious. And if you weren't laughing at it, like there's something wrong with you. It's like, okay, fine, fine. They were there protesting the final vote counts or whatever. I don't care. It's hilarious. It's hilarious. They thought they were going to make a difference. It's great. It's lovely. I laughed. You should laugh too. It's good for you. Anyways, it, but yeah, no. January 6th. It was a riot like the other riots, but if we're gonna talk about how mostly peaceful the other riots were, we got to talk about how some people were let into the building and are still being charged with trespass. And we got to talk about the fact that really only one person there wasn't a lot of rioting. People went home after a little bit. It wasn't like a full day of rioting. It was like good 3 hours. Good 3 hours of rioting. It wasn't all through the night or anything. But it's still a riot, and the people that were rioting and doing all that stuff should be punished for rioting, but I don't know. It's just at the end of the day, I just can't view it as like anywhere near the other riots that we saw. I think it's funny that everyone's being punished for it when no one got punished for like the police brutality riots. It's like people burned down businesses in Kenosha. They destroyed cars in Kenosha. They looted people in Kenosha. They did all these things. They didn't get punished. Nobody punished them. But the politicians. The politicians shat themselves in fear of the boomers that managed to get into the Capitol building. Better punish every single one of them. We need to do it again. Honestly, we need to make our politicians shit themselves again. They need to be scared of the citizenship that they are in charge of. They need to know that they work for us. It's not the other way around. And being a politician should not be profitable. That's just hands down like the other thing. I'm delaying this as best I can. I've been going for 25 minutes. I don't think I can delay it anymore. Let's just start. I'm delaying this as best I can. I've been going for 20. That's the wrong one.
Ben Shapiro is a short American conservative. Born into a West Coast elite family in 1984, he used to be a child prodigy, graduating from high school already at the age of 16, and graduating from 2 universities studying political science by the age of 23.
Excuse me. See, he's like very, very, very smart. I could have graduated high school at 16, and honestly, I implore anyone that's got like a good brain on them, do it. Just figure out how to like skip grades. Don't worry about it. Like I totally should have been the type of person to do like the online schooling stuff where I just got through it all and was done. I could have been done at 15. Honestly. The only 2 subjects I would have had to probably stick around for would be like chemistry and physics, honestly.
Benjamin Shapiro is 12 years old. He'll be accompanied by his father, David. He began training on the violin at age 5. In addition to the violin, he plays chess, loves baseball, completes in track and field. His goal is to become the first Orthodox rabbi to sit on the Supreme Court.
What are the values it's turning its back on? I'm not inclined to continue an interview with a person as badly motivated as you as an interviewer. So I think we're done here. I appreciate your time.
All
sir.
right,
Thank you so much.
As a university student, he already had his own media consulting firm, Benjamin Shapiro Legal Consulting, wrote multiple national newspaper articles, and had already written 2 books. But most importantly, he tried his hand at being a Hollywood screenwriter.
Was that a comedy? Was it sitcom? Was it drama?
It was more of a dramedy. It was
Yeah.
based on Harvard Law School. It was a dramedy. I've written a couple comedies, kind of hour-long dramedies for, spec script.
And have they been bought?
No.
And according to sources, Ben Shapiro, after submitting his script, received a phone call from a TV agent saying the following: "One of our agents Googled you and found your website. I'm not sure we can represent you because he thinks your political views will make it impossible for you to get a job in this town."
And that's the thing I don't like. It's like, what's wrong with his political views? It's like, I don't know. I don't like Ben Shapiro. I don't listen to him. He annoys me. He frustrates me. He's the type of person I couldn't agree with on a lot of things. Like, the main thing we'll disagree with is I'll tell him about free speech, and he'll be like, that's not free speech, because I'll tell him about free speech and how you have to have freedom from religion to have freedom of religion. And then he'll understand my implications. And he'll be like, but it's a tenet of Judaism to cut off your child's penis. And I'll be like, yeah, but I don't care. I don't give a fuck. You're not allowed to do it. You're not allowed to do it. Not in this society. Don't cut off your kid's dick. Don't pierce their ears. Leave them the fuck alone. Don't rape them. Like, that's all I'm asking. Don't do anything to the kids. Okay, leave the kids alone. Don't give them puberty blockers. Don't start them on HRT. Think Before You Sleep had a really good video recently. He's my favorite vegan MGTOW. Like, I know my other channel's called Incel Null, and that's a joke. I know that I'm talking about a MGTOW person now, but Think Before You Sleep, I like his videos. They are genuinely well done, and I strive to be like him. I strive to make good coherent points like him. I just can't manage it because I'm a moron. I never learned how to talk to myself. So I'm bad at figuring these points out when I don't have someone to riff off of. And that's just been my thing. That's why I do these streams now. When I'm not playing games on Twitch, or recording myself playing a video game, when I'm not streaming on Twitch, I'm trying to do these streams, or I'm doing something in real life. But when I'm doing these streams, it's all about trying to get my brain working, trying to get myself to where I'm a better communicator, better orator. And it's one of these things where I know, like, I feel like at this point, I'm like almost there where I can help, where I can actually get good at it, but I'm terrible at this. Like, I know I am. And I know a lot of it's just because I ramble. But I also have, because I've been told this before, I have like the perfect tone of voice for this stuff. And instead of doing political stuff, what I should do is I should just talk about random facts I know, or I should just read stories or whatever. Because I've been told I have like the perfect voice to lull people into a fucking sleep. And no one will notice. No one will notice. I should read like chapter 1 of Eye of the World or Stormlight Archive, something like that.
Oh wow, this sounds rather bad. And so what are some of Ben Shapiro's political views that had caused such a reaction? Oh, here's a good one. Enemy civilian casualties okay by me. I am getting really sick of people who whine about civilian casualties. Oh, okay, I'm not going to do his voice. It's annoying enough on its own. I am getting really sick of people who whine about civilian casualties. Maybe I am a hard-hearted guy, but when I see in the newspapers that civilians in Afghanistan or the West Bank were killed by American or Israeli troops, I don't really care. In fact, I would rather that the good guys use the Air Force to kill the bad guys, even if that means some civilians get killed along the way. One American soldier is worth far more than an Afghan civilian.
Yeah, that's a yikes from me. But I will say it's looking like it's looking like what's happening here. What he is trying to imply here, I can just already tell from reading this. I'm pretty sure he's implying that these aren't civilians, because I know in like the recent conflicts, this has been brought up again. Not Ben Shapiro's thing, but the whole idea of civilians being casualties. And from what I understand, it's things like Israel tells them well before they like send off bombs or whatever. And then, anyone that's still there is marked a terrorist and no longer a civilian because they're told you better leave. And that's shitty. Okay. It's all shitty over there. I really would rather us not be involved. Like, we're funding both sides of it too, which is funny. We're giving the Afghans nukes, and then we're also paying the Israeli to run their Iron Dome so we can give Lockheed Martin and everyone more money to replenish the stash. And that's how it goes. But that's just the way it goes. We used to be in love, and now we're just in like. I love Streetlight Manifesto.
The Afghans tolerated and supported the Taliban for years, no matter what President Bush says. A group doesn't conquer 95% of the country unless it has some support among the populace. The Afghans are fundamentalist Muslims. They didn't seem to mind too much that their women were treated like dogs or that the Taliban enforced Sharia Muslim law. So frankly, it doesn't matter to me if some of their civilians, quote unquote, get killed for involvement with the enemy. I'm glad the US military decided to use a massive air campaign rather than going in full force with ground troops. Holy shit.
I feel the same way, honestly. Uh, he is such an Israeli. He is such an Israeli. He is like, Israel must be protected. We must protect our allies in Israel. Ah, I hate people like that. It's like, you can't be critical of Israel because blah blah blah. I hate how the US is like that too. You can't boycott Israel in the US. You're not allowed to do it if you have a government position, which is kind of shit, and it's not constitutional. So, if you can prove that you're being fired because you boycott Israel, yeah, that's not constitutional, but they have like laws on some books. I think Texas is one of those states that has it, so fuck my state. They won't let me boycott Israel. I don't want to. But if I did,
Oh, here's
like I just can't pay attention. I'm like, where is this coming from? What, like, is Intel? Intel's an American company, but I think like, I don't know. Let me look. Something something. It's a California company. Uh, I don't know. I'm trying to remember if there's like something that they're doing with it. Ah, here it is. Intel has been operating in the state of Israel since 1974. So yeah, if I wanted to boycott Intel chips, uh, then that would be like forbidden. And my whole thing is, listen, I didn't choose AMD over Intel because of their connections with Israel. I chose AMD over Intel because it was cheaper. I'll be honest with you right there. I'm so glad I built my computer when I did, by the way, because the fucking 1660 Ti I put in here was $350. Now it's let me go to Amazon. I'll Amazon it real quick. I muted myself. I muted myself. I was talking that whole time. I don't know when I muted myself. But there's a song called Irresponsible Hate Anthem, and that song is really good. And that's how much I care about racial slurs. I think that you should be allowed to use them in a context like that. Like, that song is not as good if you try to replace the word. I'm just sorry. I'm sorry. I won't say the word here. But if I ever cover that song, I'm not gonna pussy out on it. If I ever cover that song, I'm going full on with it. Cause you can't replace the word. You just can't. The song doesn't work. I saw some stupid band on KEXP try to cover Marilyn Manson's Irresponsible Hate Anthem. And they like you either replace the words in Irresponsible Hate Anthem with nothingness and you just scream there, or you just go with it. And on the radio, I understand why you can't say the word. I understand that, okay? You can't say cuss words on the radio. But if you can't say the words on the radio, don't say it at all, because replacing it with everybody, someone else's something, it hurts. It literally just, it physically hurts me. It makes me cringe. I'm very bored at this video just because we're looking at Ben Shapiro articles, and I'm like, I want to get to the book, but yeah, I don't like Ben's politics. I'll be honest.
Here's another one. Transfer is not a dirty word. Raise your hand if you are shocked at the breakdown of the so-called Middle East roadmap. If you are raising your hand, give yourself a nice hard slap across the chops. Maybe that will wake you up from the reverie of self-delusion. The roadmap was doomed from the start. The Arab enmity for Jews and the State of Israel allows for no peace process. Here's the bottom line. If you believe that the Jewish state has a right to exist, then you must allow Israel to transfer the Palestinians and the Israeli Arabs from Judea, Samaria, Gaza, and Israel proper. It's an ugly solution, but it's the only solution. And it is far less ugly than the prospect of a bloody conflict ad infinitum. Alright, so basically that's Ben Shapiro in a nutshell. Essentially views
That's not him in a nutshell. It's just like, when it comes to the Middle East, he's just very like Israeli centric. I don't know how to say that properly, because it's like being Americentric or whatever, or being Eurocentric. Only he's like super obsessed with Israel being like the sovereign nation for Jews. And I don't know. Like, it's very different, because whenever I hear of like Israeli Jews, I forgot his name. It's gonna bother me. This guy fuck. I'm gonna have to sign in on another window or something, so it doesn't like fuck me up. But I gotta go to my incel channel. uh Gotta go to my incel channel to find this guy that I subscribed to on that one. Is it S's? Something serpent, I think. Um uh, where is he? Let me just open up my subs. There it is. Zarathustra's serpent. That's who it is. He is very, very cool. I like him. And he talks about basically like he talks about the Israeli conflict in a way like that makes me understand it. And I'll leave a link to his channel below, but it's very good content. Let me see. Not streaming enough video for smooth things. It's buffering. Probably just because like I'm not actually like doing anything with the video. There's nothing moving. It's not receiving enough video data. But it's like you should be because I'm not really like doing anything with it. It's probably the thing where like if I go silent it yells at me for not it yells at me because it's not receiving enough audio. It says my audio bit rate's at 0 because I'm not talking and it's completely silent for a minute.
Arabs as subhuman, advocates for a Jewish ethno-state, and also denies the existence of climate change. And basically on every single social issue he has taken a right authoritarian side. Oh, and he also calls himself a libertarian, but as we know that just means like right-wing fascist. He also thought that Barack Obama, a neoliberal center-right president, was basically a communist and was doing big government. And in general, he doesn't really want to let brown people into the country. Enter truly.
That's not what it is. That's not what it is. I hate when people boil it down to like, you just don't want brown people in your country. That's not what it is. When you're talking about Mexicans entering the country, we're talking about undocumented immigrants. Okay, and that's the issue. We can't have a bunch of undocumented people here because, you know, that just means that people are in the country that we don't know about. Maybe they're overstaying visas. Maybe they hopped the fence. We don't know. And so, like, when you have these people in the country, it causes issues. It's just an issue. Like, it should be an obvious issue. It's the fact that we don't know that they're in the country. We don't know where they are in the country. And if they need help, if they need assistance or whatever, like that comes from our government services that we do have, that just causes issues because we don't know they're here. We don't know if they're using our services. We don't know like what they're doing here. And it gets all convoluted when you just start adding in like the cartels and stuff. So it's just, you know, we want people to come in, but we just want their documentation. We want to know that they're here. And there's just a bunch of issues down at the southern border. It's awful down at the southern border. Especially right now, we have all these Haitians there. And I feel bad for them because they've come here because they've been promised no deportations or anything. And at a certain point, I'm just like, listen, tell them to go home. Like, there's too many people to process. At a certain point, you just got to tell them to leave. Like, if they have their documents with them, if they're here genuinely, that's fine. But if they're coming in here and they're just like, let me in, I don't want to go back home, That's another thing entirely. So it's just one of these things. Like, you can let people in. I'm not saying that immigration is bad. I'm not saying that letting people in for asylum is bad, but you can't just come in droves and then try and process every single person that's here. Every person under that bridge is not here for legitimate reasons. Like, I'm going to press X to doubt on that one. I don't think everyone here is here for legitimate reasons. I think some of them just want to get into the country and, just live under the radar. But some of them could be up to no good. And that's part of why we want to have documentation. It's like, it gets convoluted. It gets very convoluted. You can't let everyone in, and we're not gonna kick everyone out, but it's not about what color they are. It's about the fact that they don't have documentation. It's about the fact that they aren't here to become an American citizen. They don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about any of it. If they're starting out on the wrong foot, not bringing their documents with them, not, you know, having a genuine reason to seek asylum, because financial what is it, economic refugees, like, I don't find that genuine. Okay, I just don't. It's not like you're like, if you wanted a job here, you could get something here, but I don't know. There's just so many things that it just starts with. If they have documentation, I feel like that's just a step in the right direction. If they have like evidence of genuine like persecution in their area, then that's another step. It's just it's a mess. It's a mess, and there's so many factors. You got coyotes bringing kids in, claiming that they're their parents. It's like, man, it's nightmare. It's a nightmare down there. And it's like, I don't want every single person that's come in here deported. I just think that adults that are coming in, especially, that are just bringing their kids along, like, they are not it's not the right thing. Yeah, don't bring your kids through that journey with you. It ends horribly for a lot of them. And just, I don't know. My whole thing is like, I would just shut down the border at the moment, say like, we're not taking any more people for processing. But that's not how it works. And you got to protect your border in some way. Otherwise, you don't actually have a nation. You got to deport people that aren't here legally because they're not here for legitimate reasons. If they aren't going through the proper channels, they probably aren't here to do proper things. If they're just coming in, sneaking under a fence, and just going on doing whatever, like, they're not here for legitimate reasons. I just feel like that's something I can intuit based on like how someone enters the country. Doesn't matter what color their skin is. What matters is like how they got in here, how many people they're with, and where they go afterwards. If they have like family here, there's like a way you could like argue, well, they're just here to live with their family and make a better life for themselves. And they could work on citizenship from within. But if they don't really have any connections here, if they don't have connections to someone that lives in the US, it's kind of hard to know like what they're up to. And like, I'm not going to try and pull a Trump here where I say some of them I assume are good people. It's just I assume most of them are good people. Not I just think that when there's so many people to process, there's just a certain point where you just have to say no. When so many people come and just bottleneck the border, like, I don't know what to do. There's a lot of arguments that could be made, but at this point in time, I don't think we're ready for open borders. I don't think we're ready for uh actual solutions, but we have problems. And I think I genuinely feel like the US Mexico border is one of those things. It's a problem without a solution because people want it to be a problem. And I think that we could do something about it that would be optimal, but it's going to be like a long road. And I don't know what that optimal decision is. And that's where the struggle is. I don't know what the optimal decision is at the US Mexico border, because like these people, some are here for genuine reasons, some of them have their documents, some of them don't. Some of them are hopping the fence, some of them are trying to claim asylum, and you kind of have to go case by case with it. And so I'm just saying, if you start out by not bringing your documents and hopping the fence, and then you start committing crimes, I think we have grounds to deport you. If you come over here as a kid and you just always lived here your entire life, I don't think that you should be kicked out of the country. I think that there should be a process. Like, I'm pretty sure there is a process for citizenship. It's just a question of like, how do we get that information out there if there is a process for citizenship? And how do we get it to the right people so that that system doesn't get abused, so that people try to claim, oh, I was just here my entire life. I guess you just have to have references. You just have to have people like schools and all these other things saying that you attended, that you've lived here your entire life, and all these other things. But that can take a long time to just process. I don't know. It's a hard one. It's a hard one. It's another thing that I'll just have to put on the back burner.
Allegiance, a thriller he wrote in 2016, which were coincidentally the last months of the Obama presidency and the time when ISIS controlled much of Iraq and Syria. A blockbuster debut thriller ripped straight from the headlines. And not only does this book showcase a shocking lack of writing talent from Shapiro's part, he accidentally let slip some of his other political views, which are even more disturbing than the ones we've read in those two articles. So let's get right into it. True Allegiance by Ben Shapiro, written in 2016. It begins with a prologue. We're just gonna read this whole chapter because on one hand it's just 2.5 pages long, and on the other, I want you to suffer with me. New York City. By the time Jennifer Collier hit the George Washington Bridge, it was already almost 9 a.m., rush hour. The bridge had turned into an enormous parking lot. Jennifer looked at the sea of red lights before her, stretching all the way into New York, and sighed. There had to be 30,000 cars on this bridge, all of them moving at 2 miles an hour. Jennifer glanced at her watch and sighed. She was on the west side of the bridge, and she could see its 2 enormous steel-encased towers looming before her. In the passenger seat, her daughter Julie breathed softly, sleeping. Jennifer glanced at her watch again. 9:03. Come on, she muttered, which is when she heard it. The bridge groaned. It was a loud, low groan that made the car vibrate.
God damn it! God fucking damn it! He stole my book! 4 years ago, he stole my fucking book! It's like a low rum. It's a loud mechanical groan echoed across the colony. Freezing time. What is it? Something. Here it is. A loud mechanical groan echoed across the colony, freezing everyone in place. A moment passed, then another. The groan echoed. I don't know. I deleted that. I know I did. I know I did, but it was a thing. I had it written down. It was like a low groan that that shook the ground and froze everyone in place.
Julie woke up. What was that? She asked drowsily. The groan died away.
Okay, that's different. The groan just continues on. It echoes and echoes and echoes. Coming from all sides.
Nothing, said Jennifer. Probably just a plane overhead. Go back to sleep. Mommy, the bridge groaned again. This time it was longer, more drawn out. Jennifer felt the brake pedal vibrate beneath her foot. Mommy, that's not a plane, said Julie, wide awake now. The groaning continued, booming from beneath them. The bridge was undulating slightly up and down. Jennifer could see the cables of the suspension bridge oscillating like the strings of a guitar. Okay.
That's actually really good. It's like that description. I find that very good. The cables of the bridge oscillating like a guitar string. This is gonna turn into like the wisecrack video. I'll just plug in. I wish OBS had options like Audacity where I could set it to only do like the microphone or the guitar. But I can't do that. Shit. Where's the other end of this cable? Here it is. What's it under? Oh, my comforter fell off the bed. I'm in the wrong kind of chair for this. See, what you always do is you always do 1, 6. I mean 1, 5, 6. Because 1, 5, 6, 4 is the best chord progression. This is awkward. I can't do this one because I've got armrests. I've got armrests in my way. Now I gotta be careful with this because I know I'll get addicted to it.
Mommy, what's going on? Julie cried. Cars ahead were honking now, urgently pleading for those at the front of the bridge to hurry up. A few cars were trying to ram their way through the traffic. Wait, isn't the bridge like basically full? Like, how do you ram people if you're going by 2 miles per hour or something? Anyway, a few cars were trying to ram their way through the traffic, pushing other cars towards the end of the bridge. The honking and crashing, combined with the burgeoning low roar, made Jennifer's head ache, pound, the driving rhythm of her blood surging through her temples. Okay, like, this sentence is me at the age of 14 trying to sound, like, profound and literary. Then the bridge's roar stopped again. The people ahead of Jennifer kept honking, panicking, trying to get off the bridge. After about 30 seconds, the honking seemed to die down a little bit. Julie's wide eyes grew wider. She was staring at a crash on the other side of the divider. The flames leaping from the engine of a smashed Toyota. Jennifer could see a man's arm hanging, lifeless, out of the window. Jennifer reached out and gripped Julie's arm. "It's okay, baby," she whispered, wetting her lips. Then, time seemed to stop. The noise of the traffic went silent. Jennifer's eyes opened in horror. The bridge before Jennifer tilted sideways. The 604-foot tower before her began to lean, almost gracefully, to her right. Jennifer screamed, but it was drowned out by the ear-splitting cracking noise. Hundreds of thousands of tons of steel twisting and bending and grating on each other. The sound of a million airplanes crashing at once. Jennifer looked to her right as she heard the steel cables shriek, stretch on the other side of the bridge.
Now we need to pick.
Locked eyes with an elderly man driving a silver Lincoln Continental. Behind him, she saw one of the enormous metal cables snap clean and slither wildly back and forth like a beginning fly fisherman's messy cast. "Look out!" she shouted at the man. He couldn't hear her, but he turned to follow her eyes. The cable ripped through the Lincoln, slicing its occupants in half vertically. A jet stream of red flowing in its wake, splattering Jennifer's windshield. She opened her mouth to scream and realized that she was already screaming so hard no sound was emerging. In front of her, the road itself began to tilt. Cars slid horizontally toward the railings, bath-time playthings of an angry god. The first tower buckled. Jennifer felt herself fall as the top level of the bridge dropped. For a moment she was weightless. The peculiar memory of jumping inside an elevator when she was a little girl flitted through her brain. And then the second level of the bridge slammed down on top of the first level at a 25-degree angle. The tower stopped bending but holding grotesquely, the metal shrieking and moaning, smoke emerging from below. Jennifer could hear the screams and cries of the wounded below her.
The carnage of metal and bone.
I mean, Jesus, sounds like a countryside metal band's first album. An awful crematory smell burned her nose as cars exploded beneath her one by one. What, are they all Teslas? Muffled by the tons of cement and steel, sounding for all the world like popcorn. Julie was screaming uncontrollably. In the distance, sirens sounded eerily, and over the river she could see emergency helicopters approaching. Jennifer fumbled for her purse and dug through it for her cell phone. She threw aside her wallet, her makeup, poured out the contents on the floor of the passenger seat, grabbed her cell phone, speed-dialed Bill. It rang once, then twice. Finally, it went to message. "I love you," she whispered into the phone. Yeah, she whispered as her daughter was screaming uncontrollably next to her. As she did, Julie pointed through the front windshield, her lips quivering in silent horror. The second tower was tilting too. Like some sort of horrible snake, the bridge responded to the tower. It tilted and keeled over the road, peeling away before Jennifer as it leapt up to the side. Jennifer saw thousands of cars turn on their sides, rotate like clothes in a washing machine. Jennifer heard the awful roar, I guess the 20th at this point, the unnatural screaming of thousands of voices as the stream of red lights before her began to disappear. There was nowhere for her to go. She turned to Julie, her eyes round with terror. She grabbed her hand. "It's going to be all right," she whispered. Julie nodded slowly. Jennifer clasped her by the face and looked into her eyes. "I promise you," she said. "It's going to be all right. Now just close your eyes, darling." Julie closed her eyes. Jennifer didn't. She looked into the river below her, saw the disappearing taillights of the thousands of cars descending into the depths of the Hudson. "God," she whispered. "Oh, God." Okay, so what have we just read? So first off, just from a technical writing perspective, this is dog shit. Like,
Yeah, it's not great. It could be better. But I mean, it's only the beginning, so I don't know. wrong. If it was in that key. Oh, this is fucking kryptonite. I hate kryptonite. If it was in sharp, it's like, where is F sharp here? That's E. But that's E natural. I don't know what I'd want to do with that. Can't reach that fret. I don't know. But yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. It's worse than my guitar playing.
Like, if this was submitted to a literary agent, this would have been rejected after the first paragraph. Just like, the tone is all over the place, it's inconsistent, the metaphors are weird as hell, and the prose is dog shit in general.
Listen, he has the oscillating guitar string as like one thing. That is like the one thing I will give him. The guitar string is like a very good description, though it's closer to a bass string, I would say. I forget how I did that. I forget where that is. I forget what I did there. It's been forever. It wasn't a D. Oh God. can't remember how I played that. It's been too long. That's been so long, I forgot that one. I'd have to like put a capo on this and then go back and listen to that. Let's make a new solo. I'm shit. What am I stuck on? That's where it is. Be 1, 5, 4. I don't know. 1, 5, 4. So yeah. That's where I am. It's back to the wisecrack video.
And moreover, Ben Shapiro made like the #1 amateur mistake that aspiring writers make. You know, many beginners start with this big action scene. You know, people getting blown up, heads getting chopped off, cars getting exploded. And the audience gets bored out of their minds. Because while the scenes themselves could be very interesting, we don't have any emotional connections to the characters. We don't know who Jennifer is, we don't know who Julie is. You know, as far as we're concerned, they're just two cardboard cutouts. Dry and two-dimensional, and only there to just artificially inject some drama into the otherwise boring story. And while it is possible to make us care about characters within one chapter, A, you have to be a really good writer, which Ben Shapiro most definitely isn't, and B, the chapter should be longer than 2.5 pages. And by the way, Ben Shapiro's style of writing just reeks of someone who's familiar with television to some extent. You know, he tried to do this big, flashy CGI action scene opener on the pages of a book where it just doesn't work. Yeah, child prodigy, by the way. But let's take a look at the story now, because that's where the real problems begin. So this 180-page book...
Listen, you can be like a prodigy at many things. That doesn't make you like great at everything. And I'll tell you right now, like, being book smart has nothing to do with with being able to be a coherent person. It doesn't have anything to do with your social skills. Because I can tell you, I'm pretty book smart, okay? Give me the right formulas for algebra, give me your algebra homework, give me all the information for it, I can do it. Ask me about finance stuff, I can talk about it. Like, here's what I'll tell you as a finance person. Invest early, invest often, save as much money as you can. when you can. Try not to go into too much debt. It's like very obvious stuff, but like as far as stonks go, I won't give you like any specific advice. I would just go broadly. I'd suggest getting into exchange traded funds if you want to invest for yourself. I would stick with things that are trusted and tried and true, like S&P 500 funds, things like that. That's just my opinion, okay? It may not pan out for you, but, it's a really good tried and true method. Just stick with the S&P 500, stick with these um, companies, well, with these indexes that have steadily gone up over time. That's pretty good. Okay? Like that's what I know. That's what I know. That's what works for me. Keep putting your money into that investment account, because the more money you have in your investment account, the more it grows and the faster it grows over time. It's like as you just keep building up and up and up, things just get better and better and better. It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Has not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, but 6 viewpoint characters. So we have Brett Hawthorne, the youngest general in the US Army and also a 6'2" bear of a man. He loves America and wants to bomb terrorists. We have Mark Prescott, the elitist, out-of-touch, pro-big government president who doesn't want to protect the border and hates common people. We have Soledad, a woman who worked really hard and pulled herself up by her own bootstraps, but then the government came and ruined her ranch with regulations and taxes, and the EPA cut her water supply for environmental protection reasons. We have Levon, an African-American from Detroit, who's this local drug lord, runs a gang, and also operates a protection racket demanding money from businesses. We have Ellen, who's Brett's wife. She exists. We have this kid called Mohammed, who also exists, I guess. And, oh wait, we actually have another viewpoint character, O'Sullivan, a police officer who shoots a black kid. So yeah, this is our star-studded cast of characters, I guess. And an interesting and rather revealing pattern I've noticed is that pretty much all the major characters have some kind of atrocity committed to them by a black person, either directly or indirectly. Of course, except for Levon, because he himself is the one who commits the atrocities, because, he's black. So what else would he do in a Ben Shapiro book? Anyway, the story begins with Brett Hawthorne, and then we get one whole page of happenings.
Oh man, I'm already like suffering. I'm suffering from this font up here at the very top. This font is painful.
Until Ben Shapiro decides it's time to go back to a long fucking flashback recapping Brett Hawthorne's entire fucking life, all the way to that first page. And
oh no!
This book, that Ben Shapiro is kind of weird about people being big and tall. Like, he himself is a manlet, but this book is just full of these gigantic, rippling, muscly dudes. And it's so awkward to read over and over again. Every single person is like the fucking Hulk reborn. The men, at least. Here, for example, on this very first page, Hawthorne was a bear of a man. 6'3" in his bare feet and 215 pounds in his underwear. And also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's such a thing as a city's poor part of town. It's either one or the other, right? There are expressions such as the city's poor parts or poor part of town, but I don't think these two things can be used together. And honestly, as someone who had already written 2 books by the age of...
What the fuck? Is this man shirtless? He has to be. Because, if you're... I don't know. Because you don't really feel the coldness from a trickle of sweat. You can just feel sweat. It's not how I would describe it. It comes across as Ben Shapiro has never actually sweat in his life.
You're 21, I would expect Ben Shapiro to know these things. Anyway, so the chapter goes on, and Ben Shapiro gives us 1 page of plot, followed by 15 pages of flashbacks. And then after the flashbacks, we finally get back to the main plot for 4 entire lines, and then the chapter ends.
Fun.
But what Ben Shapiro
Oh my
writes
God.
in these flashbacks is already, I would say, somewhat concerning. So the flashbacks begin at Brett Hawthorne's high school years, where Ben feels the need to specifically point out that the school he went to was heavily black. But just listen to this, okay? He'd been a shy kid, gentle, quiet, built like a reed. But he learned one skill pretty quickly at Thomas Edison High: how to talk his way out of a bad situation. That he learned from Derek.
No, you can't steal one of my characters' names. Derek's my character. No, I'm kidding. What's the other way I could say this? What's up, guys? Derek, morticious, morbicious.
On the second day of school, Brett was sitting by himself at lunch. He wasn't one of the Irish kids, and he wasn't one of the Italian kids, so he couldn't sit with those cliques. And he had made the mistake the day before of trying to befriend a couple of the black kids. That hadn't gone well. He had ended up with a black eye and a few new vocabulary words to add to his dictionary.
Where is this? Is this? If this is a high school, he already had those words in his dictionary. Yeah, if this is a middle school, like I was lost. Is this a middle school or a high school?
The high school years in these flashbacks.
High school.
In this book, black people are
Oh my God, it's high school. You learned those words in middle school. You fucking Ben, you learned those words in middle school.
to his dictionary. Yeah, so in this book, black people are essentially these like wild, out of control animals. But wait, there's more. The chapter goes on. So today he sat alone, until he made the mistake of looking up. Standing above him, glaring at him, was a behemoth, a black kid named Yard. Nobody knew his real name. Everybody just called him Yard because he played on the school football team, stood 6'5", clocked in at a solid 280 pounds, and looked like he was headed straight for a lifetime of prison workouts. Okay, so in writing, there are 2 kinds of third-person narration: third-person limited and third-person omniscient. Third-person limited means that you view the events from the character's viewpoint. That means presenting the world through the character's eyes, filtered through their personality and previous experiences. Now, Ben Shapiro, on the other hand, uses third-person omniscient, meaning that the information is presented to us through an omniscient narrator who usually knows more than the character. Now, because of this, and because Ben Shapiro has very little writing talent, in this case, the omniscient narrator is Ben Shapiro himself. So whenever you read shit like this, making a mistake by trying to befriend some black people, headed for a lifetime of prison workouts, you're not listening to this neutral, aloof narrator. You're listening to Ben Shapiro himself. And so let's also talk about the importance of promises and payoffs in stories. It's very important to make the right promises to your readers and then make good on those promises. This whole ill-fated high school section.
I can give you a good example of this, actually. Read Stormlight Archive if you haven't. Stormlight Archive is amazing. I've been reading Wheel of Time lately, but like Wheel of Time, it's a slog. I shouldn't have read Stormlight Archive before it. I should have finished Wheel of Time first. Because Stormlight Archive is just promise and payoff and promise and payoff. Like, I'm telling you, I'm a fucking sap, okay? Give me a sob story, give me something to feel sorry about. I'll bawl like a baby. I remember I was listening to like the Rhythm of War audiobook, and there's a scene. I'll say it involves Kaladin, if you know the scene I'm talking about. I was at work, and I was about to start fucking crying at work, because I had Rhythm of War in my left ear or something, and I was like, oh no, Kaladin! It's like this very high emotional payoff. I was like trying not to cry at work listening to it. It was great.
Is dedicated to showing us how Brett learned.
Like, I'm just thinking of it now, and I'm just like back in that mental state. I can just feel my eyes watering up because it was done so beautifully. Like, oh man, I'm just thinking of that moment and just like that moment is really good, and I'm genuinely in tears right now thinking about it, because I'm like, oh my god, you get to that point with Kaladin, and it's just, oh, it is such a good payoff. It is such a good payoff, and I can't say anything more, but like, it is so good. Like it brings you down to like this very like sad point, but then it just like rises up, and like this that sadness becomes happiness, and you feel so great about it. So
Learned how to talk his way out of a bad situation. And he learned that from this kid called Derek. But the thing is, Derek didn't talk his way out of the situation, he just started singing and acting weird. And then this caused the big black animal to get confused and back off. And then it just never comes up again. Brett is never put in a situation where he has to talk his way out, and so he can utilize the skill he's learned. But then again, Shapiro couldn't even keep his own narrative straight for a few paragraphs. So, I don't know what I expected. And so as the chapter goes on, we get into another minor aspect of Ben Shapiro's writing, namely that he's super weird about women. He himself doesn't have much experience with women, he himself being a virgin all the way until he was married. Oh, and
I don't care. Like, okay, I just don't care. Like, if you fuck, you fuck. It doesn't really matter. I'm always joking. I guess I mean, here's where I stand. My second channel's called Incel Null. I really don't care. If you're gonna fuck, you're gonna fuck. You're gonna do it. I'm just not interested right now.
and by the way, he also thinks that women should not have the right to have an abortion, not even in
Okay, but it's like a religious thing. It's like a religious thing. It's like the abortion thing is very complicated because it's very much like it's definitely one of these religious versus non-religious things, and like I'm at a point now where when I hear people talking about abortion, it makes me very uncomfortable. Not because I don't believe in the idea of my body, my choice. I don't believe that people should be forced to carry a pregnancy to term if they don't want to. But when I'm looking at things now and people are like really proud of it, I don't know. It's the shout your abortion stuff that makes me uncomfortable. And that's even as someone who is pro choice. And I think like I'm fine with having the discussion on when there's like a cutoff point. Like I think like obviously viability is like a cutoff point, and that gets earlier and earlier. Like, but it's just it is just frustrating to like try and like bridge the gap between people who are pro-life and pro-choice, because people who are pro-life, it is typically like just a very religious idea, and it's not a contradiction on their side to be like pro-life of an infant and then anti-life of someone who's like a murderer or whatever. But I also don't believe in the death penalty, so my conscience is coherent. But like the whole thing being like, I understand the pro-life argument as being like it's like it's a potential human being and it has infinite potential and all these other things, and it's just like it's I know I can't really like get it across to I can't get it fully across to people that haven't like really had that drilled into them previously. But it is very much like it depends on where you're coming from. Like Ben's Jewish, so it's like he doesn't believe in an afterlife. But in like a Christian standard, it's just there's a soul in there, and because of that, you know, terminating it early is against God's will. I know that much. And then I think that I think that the best way to handle it if you are pro-choice is to accept that it is the ending of a life in a way. It is like it is killing something that is technically like in some way alive because your cells are living and whatnot, but like I think it's one of those things like it would probably help bridging the gap a long way if everyone could agree that it is not a good thing. It is like a thing that we would prefer not happen, but it shouldn't be prohibited. And so it's like these heartbeat bills that we have going on. I just I think that the heartbeat bills come from a very like it comes from a place of well-meaning on that end, but it's it's really one of those things. It's kind of dodgy because it's like that's going to be like the conversation in a few years on abortion. It's like when the actual cutoff point has to be, because we can't have like third trimester abortions, and we can't have like viable fetuses just killed off because the mom doesn't want them. That I just feel that that's wrong, but it's a gray area, and I think like the best way to like bridge the gap is for people that are pro-choice to just kind of acknowledge that it is like something that we don't want to have to do, but it is just a fact of life that it happens. And it's just I don't know, that's a that's like a dicey one. Like I'm all for the right to choose, but I'm not okay with like people promoting it as a form of birth control rather than condoms and morning after pills and stuff like that. I think abortion should be for when it actually like doesn't work, and it should be like very heavily considered. And I think that the pro-life people have made it kind of hard for us to like actually like have a serious discussion on it. And I think that the very like crazy people that are like shout your abortion and stuff like that also make it like very hard to have a serious conversation on it. And it's just very frustrating because it's like I understand both sides, and I can even see like a secular reason why you shouldn't promote doing it regularly. But, it's just that whole thing like it's it's not something we should celebrate, and it's not something that we should make super super common. It's something we should try to prevent from happening. So, it shouldn't be illegal, and there should be a point when you've waited too long. Like crazy cases outstanding, a point where you've waited too long, and there shouldn't be like something so restrictive like these heartbeat bills that end up being only like you can't even get through one of the trimesters. Because if it was just a first trimester limit, maybe there would be less of an argument there. but you're not even getting through a full trimester. You may not have even had time to realize you're pregnant, because some people go through their whole pregnancy not realizing they're pregnant. And it just ends up being like a very, very hard thing to discuss. And it's very weird. Like, I don't know. It gets very weird too, because when we talk about the states doing it, there's like a bunch of statistics that I know of where it's like men are more pro-choice than women. That's one I know of that's like really shocking. And then the other one is like, the other thing that I'm thinking about is just, a lot of the times, like, at this point, we have more women voters than men voters. And women vote for the people that write these bills. So it's like, I don't know. I don't know. It's like it's an up in the air thing, and I don't know. It's a very, very awkward thing, and I just don't like the idea of blanket bans on it, and I don't like the idea of celebrating it. I just think it should be available. I think safe, legal, and rare is the proper standard to have for it.
In cases of rape or incest, by the way, only if the mother's life is in jeopardy. He also thinks that doctors who perform abortions should be jailed. Yeah, he's a libertarian, by the way. Okay, so this is how Ben Shapiro handles writing women and flirtation. No loitering, cadet. The voice was musical. For some reason, the image of a woodwind came to mind. A southern woodwind, since her accent sang of long summers and lemonade. What? Brett didn't care about that. He turned, irked, and found himself face to face with a beautiful young woman, about 17, staring aggressively at him. No, she said. I expected better from a cadet. Hanging around here, driving away all the customers. And what if I do drive them all away? What if I was the last man left on Earth, standing right here at this shop? He couldn't believe his mouth was moving this well. Okay, the thing is, it's not. Like, I've read this line over and over again, I just don't get it. Like, what if I do drive them away? What if I was the last man left on Earth standing right here at this shop? Like, what about this is, like, good? Or, I don't know. Like, what does it even mean? Is it some kind of pop culture reference? Or, like, is this how Ben Shapiro actually imagines flirting or something? Because, I mean, this is less Cary Grant smooth talking and more conservative filthy Frank in search of a mate. So, what if I was the last man standing around here, huh? I'm a virgin, by the way. He couldn't believe his mouth was moving this well, considering his tongue had turned to glue against his molars. Would you do me the honor of letting me take you for a walk along the pier? He flashed what he hoped was his most charming smile. I've been asked by cadets before, and I'll be asked by cadets again, she shot back without hesitation. And if you'll wipe that grin that looks like you're eating tacks and manure off your face... A grin that looks like you're eating tacks and manure. Why would you grin if you... whatever. And if you buy one of these here pictures...
Just say shit-eating grin. My God, Ben.
I'll think about it. The smile disappeared. His hand flashed to his wallet. He took out a $20 bill, fingered it, then handed it over, pointing at the watercolor of a palmetto-lined road along the shore. I'll take that one. She handed it over. Wait, who handed it over to whom? Did Ben mistype it? And did he mean like he handed it over to her? Or like, who's she and who did he...
Like, I can follow this. He pointed to the painting, and she handed it over to him. No, I can't follow this. Because now that I'm reading it more, I'm lost. Because at first I'm just starting at the she handed it over part, and I'm like, see, if it stopped here, it would make sense. It would make sense. It's like he pointed at a watercolor painting. and then she handed it over. That would make sense. But then you have this other shit where it's like, so how about it? And then she says, no, I think I'll pass. I don't know who's saying how about it. And I don't know like who. I know she's the one saying I'll pass. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense after that point. If he just bought the painting, it would be one thing. It would be rushed, but now I'm lost.
He, like, she handed it over. So how about it? She raised an eyebrow in mockery. No, I'll think I'll pass. He felt the frustration rise in his chest. But I just bought the picture. I'm not that cheap a date, she laughed. This time the musicality of it pierced him. Alright, so
So how about it is like a date? It's like that's not how you would ask someone out. That's not how anyone would ask anyone out. That's ah, this is like super cringe.
Ellen, Brett's future wife, is presented to us as this, like, unbearable, catty bitch, which really goes to show you how much Ben Shapiro really knows about women or dating in general. And just listen to this. So maybe his way with words didn't win Ellen, but his persistence did. By the time he bought his 5th picture, she agreed to a walk. By the 10th, they were going steady. 2 years later, they were married. And so, okay, first off,
That is so rushed. That is so rushed, and it's like
not only is Ellen this catty bitch, she's also this art connoisseur gold digger. And also, Ben, if you don't know anything about women or dating, then just research it before writing about it, or just skip it altogether. Because this is basically dating 101. You know, if someone wouldn't even go out with you unless you buy them a bunch of shit, then that's a huge red flag. Anyway, dating lessons over, back to the book. Further in the flashback, Ben also mentions that Brett just learned Pashto for some reason, Pashto being a common language in Afghanistan. But then Ben says that this was a simple coincidence. And it's like, was it? Like, who the fuck learns Pashto just because, you know? And it's like Ben has complete control over what's happening in this book. Why didn't he write stuff like, oh yeah, he was expecting that Afghanistan is gonna be a problem or something, so he got down into the US Army's Pashto courses or something, I don't know. I mean, this is just so fucking lazy writing. It would have taken him literally like one sentence to explain it. But instead he literally just goes, oh yeah, Brett just knows Pashto, he's just awesome, you know? Yeah, Pashto, he does it. Yep, it's coincidence. Anyway, so at some point Ben mentions that Ellen had like a miscarriage, but he can't do it without sounding cringy again. He picked her up in his powerful arms, held her tight, so small against him. Anyway, the flashback continues, saying that some guards flushed down a Koran on the toilet in Guantanamo Bay, and then the story came out in Newsweek, which is a publication that Ben doesn't agree with, I guess. And then this causes riots all over the Muslim world, including Afghanistan.
wasn't there like a movie? There was like some cheap movie. Ah man, like is that what it's called? Oh no. Uh Here it is.
For your knowledge,
Uh it's called Muhammad movie. It's like 11 minutes long. Is this it? Yeah, it's this one. It's called Muhammad the Bastard full movie.
Call him the Father Unknown.
I think you're right, my son.
I have no clue. Like, man, it's so old. 2012, 2013. Getting a bunch of results. But yeah, it caused like riots. It's baffling.
Where the population gets all riled up and the Afghani president tries to appease the inflamed population by... just listen to this, okay? The deal for the military bases was all but dead. The administration was scrambling. The Afghan president, in an attempt to appease his inflamed population, demanded that US troops change their rules of engagement to avoid civilian casualties, in the process endangering more American soldiers. Like... what? Ben, hey, do you remember that article we saw in the beginning? Yeah, enemy civilian casualties are still okay by Ben, it seems. And I find this fucking fascinating. Like, how fucking sociopathic do you have to be? And just how fucking lost do you have to be in general to write something into your own story like, oh yeah, the Afghani president, as a symbol of opposing the Americans, asked the Americans of like, hey, could you please like... could you be more careful? Like, you know, when you do an airstrike on the Taliban or something, you also like swat out 3 civilians. Could you maybe not? You write that into your story and then you look at it and it's like, let's say this shows how unreasonable these brown people are. This Afghani president is a traitor. What a sociopathic little shitbag, Jesus Christ. But wait, there's more. He'd been ushering a CNN crew around. Gotta keep these schmucks from reporting that we eat Muslims, he told Alan. But, just 2 lines ago, you told us, Ben, that the US Army in Afghanistan uses engagement methods that result in mass death of civilians. So much so that the Afghani president had to go out and be like, hey, could you please fucking not? So, I mean, Ben Shapiro is so fucking stupid, he has so little talent as a writer, that even in this world of make-believe, in the world that he shapes completely, that he can write whatever he wants to, his book, even in that world, his fucking narrative doesn't hold up. The CNN crew is right. The Americans are killing civilians. You know how I know? Because Ben Shapiro told me 2 lines ago. Anyway, Ben Shapiro is not good for my blood pressure. And just look at how he describes the CNN crew anyway, which is a publication that Ben Shapiro in real life doesn't like. The members of the CNN crew were yawning. One of them leaned up against the pole of a stall, camera still fixed to his eye. Colonel, he said lazily, I think we've got about enough footage. Brett turned to speak, and from behind the cameraman he saw a child on a donkey about 300 feet away. Yeah, okay, so all these CNN crews are like, whatever, man, can't we just go? We're liberals, we're just like not interested, we just want to make the Americans look bad. One of the soldiers moved towards the donkey. Get away from it, Brett barked. The child began to cry. The cameraman zoomed in eagerly. This was absolute gold, a crying Afghan child frightened to death by the awful Americans. And it's like, this is just childish. Like, we're looking into the mind of Ben Shapiro right now. He was a 32-year-old man when he wrote this. Like, this is what he thinks CNN is like. It's a child prodigy, dude. Anyway, so the donkey has a bomb strapped to it and the child as well, and then Brett takes out his gun and shoots out the cell phone on the donkey which was going to detonate the bomb. And it's like, dude, like how over the top do you have to be? Like, this isn't even an action movie. This is a fucking JoJo battle. Yeah, dude.
This isn't even a JoJo battle. This is like a handshakers moment. Oh, do you know about handshakers? Oh my god, handshakers. That I need to actually watch the whole thing. I need to get the boys back together. We need to watch handshakers.
Dude, that's it. Fucking Brett is a stand user. Like, fucking stand user. Brett Hawthorne. Stand. Civilian casualty. Like, fuck. I'm getting distracted, but this is the only way for me to dull the pain. Anyway, but if you thought that this chapter cannot get any lower, if you thought that things cannot get any dumber, just check this out. There's an ambassador called Beauregard Frederick Feldkauf, who Ben describes as this sort of malicious member of the democratic establishment who only got the job in Afghanistan because he donated a bunch of money to the president, who's a Democrat. And so Ben wants to paint him in a negative way because, of course, he's a Democrat, you know, he's bad. And so this is how he goes about it. The setup is that the Kabul US embassy comes under attack and the Taliban are like shooting at it, throwing Molotov cocktails at it, and there's general chaos and panic all around. When Brett turned back to give his men orders, he saw the ambassador in the corner, cowering under a desk, clutching his briefcase to his chest. He was screaming at Brett in his high-toned Boston Brahmin accent. "Your job is to keep me safe, so do your goddamn job!" "Shut the fuck up," Brett said. The coldness of his tone stunned the ambassador into silence. Then an odd, keening noise emanated from his mouth. It rose higher and higher, louder and louder. What? Like, what is that? Like, how am I supposed to interpret this fucking description? So Brett punched him in the mouth. Not hard, just enough to stun him. "Get your pansy ass onto the roof right now," he said, slowly, glaring. Now Feldkauf nodded. Brett motioned, and the Marines pouring into the compound formed a phalanx around the ambassador, whose eyes had gone blank with fright and shock. The group moved towards the staircase. The helicopter pad was on the roof. It was already overloaded. Every staffer with an ounce of brains had rushed to the roof after the fence came down. Brett flashed back to the old videos of the last helicopter leaving Saigon, with all the wailing civilians attempting to climb onto the landing skids. Feldkauf took one look at the crowded helicopter, filled with civilian staffers. Then he pointed at one woman. She was crying. "Off!" he cried. "I'm the ambassador!" She was crying too. Wait, you just said that she was crying? Oh, whatever. "Mr. Ambassador," Brett said, "we can get you out another way." "Screw that!" Feldkauf was nearing hysterics again. "That's my helicopter and I'm getting on it, and I'm in charge." The woman got off the helicopter, sobbing. From the street, the noise rose, then fell silent. Her sobs echoed in the quiet, along the whoop 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 of the chopper blades. Like, what? Yeah, right, dude. Her sobs echoed in the quietness of... Brett moved to help the woman when the bullet struck her in the throat, tearing it open. Dude, we're back to the JoJo battle. She looked up at him, blood gurgling onto the roof. The blood pumped out, slowly. She tried to speak, grabbed Brett's hand hard, then her eyes went cold. Brett hit the deck as bullets began taking down the people on the roof, one by one. "Move toward the center of the roof," he yelled. "They can only spot you from the street." The helicopter rotors went transparent, and the machine began to take off. Brett caught Feldkauf's eyes. "If I see you again, you son of a bitch," Brett thought, "I'll make you pay for that." But Feldkauf didn't see him. He was too busy smiling, a trickle of blood spilling down his split lower lip. And holy fucking shit, dude. Like, isn't it just fucking amazing? Like, this isn't even ham-fisted. This is beyond ham-fisted. This is unintentional parody. Yeah, and then the evil Democrat ambassador pulled down a sobbing woman, let's say, and then he was smiling as she scaled and like the blood throat splattered and gargling blood, and the ambassador was like, haha, fucking faggot. Like, oh, Ben. Alright, so the Taliban's then overwhelm the embassy, and like Brett jumps down the roof with his troops, but before that there's like a split-second moment where he like reflex kills a Taliban with his pistol. You know, he barely has enough time to react, but he does have enough time to think, you know, Democrats bad. Alright, so he jumps down, breaks his arm, and then goes to hide for a few hours, and then we're back to where we started. And then this was the chapter. Like, holy fucking shit, dude. Like, this is offensive. Like, I'm offended. But alas, the damned cannot know peace, so let's head deeper into the book, The Next Circle of Hell, President Prescott, Washington, D.C. And this chapter will be about Ben Shapiro's economic positions. So, yeah, get ready for some galaxy brain shit.
Oh no. No, not economics for Ben.
Right, so as I've alluded to before, President Prescott in this book is basically just Barack Obama, and
Thanks, Obama. Promised me a public option. Just wrote a giant check for the insurance companies. Thanks, Obama.
think you'll see why. So let's begin. "We simply can't pay for it, sir." White House Chief of Staff Tommy Bradley was standing over the president's desk in the Oval Office, a sheaf of budget papers in his hand. Crumbled, wrinkled papers covered in red notes.
See, I remember CGP Grey made a video about this, and it is like factual. It's like the president doesn't actually make the budget. It's Congress. It's just called the president's budget because then if it costs too fucking much, it's like, damn, that president, current person in charge, Trump, Biden, whoever, that president, asking for way too much. We gotta take loans for it. Our debt ceiling's going up. All because the current sitting president asked for way too much shit. And it's never the current sitting president. It's part of the reason that I actually like want more people kind of like Rand Paul. It's like at least he's like saying things like, hello, we need to get rid of our debt. Like when he says stuff like that, I can't hate him. He's the only one talking about it. Everyone else is just like hanging around. They're like, let's get more money into our government systems. Let's pay Congress more. You know, I just don't think being a political person should be profitable. I think you should have an actual job.
The numbers just didn't add up, and President Prescott didn't care. Listen to me, Tommy, said the president. My re-election relies on our ability to secure funding for this action. You know that, I know that. The polls show it. We don't have a choice in the matter. Okay, so we're 8 lines in and there's already a lot of problems with this. First off, I've never heard about paper being crumbled with a B. I thought it was written with a P as in crumpled paper. And once again, from a technical writing perspective, what Ben Shapiro did here was a huge rookie mistake. You never, ever, ever have 2 characters monologue at each other, sharing information they already know just to share it with the audience. And this isn't even like 70s, 80s kind of rookie mistake, you know, when old fantasy books used to begin with huge info dumps. This is a 19th century mistake, commonly known as
maid and butler dialogue. Okay? This comes from old stage plays, where they would have the maid and the butler come onto the stage at the beginning of the play, and they would step up, and the butler would say, as you know, the master is away for the weekend taming some wild horses, and he loves horses. And the maid would say, yes, and as you know, the missus is here alone with the horse master. And he would say, yes, and as you know, and then they would like set up the whole plot by having a conversation about things they already know about.
Alright, so just from a technical standpoint, this chapter...
I love not Ben. I love Brandon Sanderson. He's fun. I love his lectures. I love listening to them. Applying the information is another thing.
is a complete failure already. Like seriously, you don't make mistakes like this and get published. So anyway, let's move on to the ideological content of this chapter because Jesus fucking Christ. Like I've never seen someone be like this obviously fucking wrong and yet be so like all gas no brakes. Alright, so this not so subtle setup for this chapter is that the president's ratings are going down and the economy is going to shit. There's high inflation and the unemployment rate is 25%, so this is like Great Depression level crisis. So Prescott did what Prescott knew how to do. He survived. The easiest way to survive, end his predecessor's wars, no matter what the cost, then pump up spending at home. There was no glory to be won on the poppy fields of Afghanistan. Everlasting glory didn't come in the form of military victory in this day and age. It came from the form of everlasting social programs that grew and inured to the benefit of all Americans. FDR was worshipped not because of World War II, but because of Social Security. LBJ had lost Vietnam, but he had won the Great Society. I mean, yeah? Big men, Prescott knew, required big governments, and big governments required big spending. Okay, so really fucking subtle, Ben, thank you. So Prescott spent. He spent on green technologies, on education programs, on food stamps and highway and medical mandates. He spent on vacations and dinners and public...
It's like, I don't care that we're spending money on food stamps. It's fine. But we're spending way too much on highways. and we're spending way too much for our medicine because there's not really competition in medicine. Like, I think the first step towards better healthcare in the US, at least affordability wise, would be having like that hospital listing the actual cost of whatever procedure you're going to have. And they should list all the procedures they offer. So that way, if they offer procedures that are non therapeutic and done to people that cannot consent to these non therapeutic procedures, you can say, I'm not giving you my money. You're a fucked up individual. You're a fucked up organization. So that would solve a problem.
Works projects. Every dollar spent, he told the American public, created $5, no 10, in commerce. The money could either be hidden in the mattresses of the rich, or it could be shared with everyone. Yeah. His poll numbers went up initially. He waited for the inevitable economic bump that would enshrine his legacy and assure his re-election. And nothing happened. The economy sputtered and spluttered along, not quite collapsing, but certainly not booming. And, oh my god, like, this is the most basic fucking shit. I thought even conservatives agreed to this. The economic multiplying effect of infrastructure projects is a fucking fact. It has been proven time and time and time again that during crises you spend. You ramp up state spending into useful projects such as infrastructure because that's what helps the country get out of the crisis. Do you know which country did it? China. They started dumping billions upon billions into all kinds of projects, and this is the reason why in 2020 the US has 735 kilometers of high-speed rail, while China has 35,388 kilometers. And hey, do you know which country didn't spend in response to the crisis? The UK in 2010, led by conservative David Cameron. Do you know what the result was? Recession. And I just don't get it why Ben Shapiro keeps peddling this horse shit, you know.
Yeah, and this is like the thing too. This is like why I like Adam, because he's talking about these trains. Where I live, there's train stations everywhere, but you know what's not on those trains? It's people. If the people were on the trains and they went to these stations that are like 50 miles apart, imagine all the cars that would just not be on the highway. And then you start there. Okay, get people from point A to point B without their cars. And then you make point A and point B very, very nice. You make it where they can just spend money there. And then you give access points to other things from point A and point B that just leads to like whatever thing you need to go to. In this case, point A, you're not really getting much. You can walk a little bit. You're not really going to get a bus system here. But, you know, in point B, it's a big city. It's already got a bus system. But, you know, there's not like really nice like places to hang out or anything. There's a mall. Everyone goes to the mall, but it's like not as many people as they used to have. And people are going to it less and less every day.
All this happened 4 to 5 years before this book was written. And oh my god, he's so fucking dumb because he could have included this as, oh yeah, the Democrat president started spending, but since they were Democrats, they were like spending incompetently and the money went to all the wrong things and their cronies or whatever, and then the economy didn't recover. Like that would have made some sense within Ben Shapiro's universe. But he's so dumb and at the same time so buried in his own propaganda that he just couldn't fucking help himself. But hey, it actually gets worse. Check this out. Then, a miracle. In the middle of the night, Prescott woke up with a phrase ringing in his brain, over and over. It was as though a higher power had placed them in his mind. He grabbed a pen from his bedside drawer and wrote it down. Work freedom. The Work Freedom Program. Prescott's Work Freedom Program. Everyone recognized the value of freedom, but what did that mean other than the right to a job? Freedom meant nothing if you couldn't put bread in your children's mouths at night. And America was a country of workers. Freedom was work, and work was freedom. Work freedom. Simple, easy, repeatable. Genius. I wonder how Ben Shapiro would feel if someone compared him to Nazis. Ah, God, what a piece of shit. But then later in the chapter, the evil big government president gives a speech where he says things that Ben Shapiro tries to present as a fucking crazy person saying them, but just listen. Our country is too great, our economy too powerful, our mission on this planet too important for us to continue to tolerate the growing gap between rich and poor, between those who are lucky and those who are less fortunate. For generations, our parents and grandparents have told us that this was the land of opportunity. Coming from the Soviet Union or from Nazi Germany, they were right. Compared to those places, America was a land of opportunity. But that did not mean that American opportunity was open to all. African Americans were denied work based on the color of their skin. Women were prevented from entering the workplace based on sexism. Minorities of all stripes are subject to discrimination at the hands of an unfeeling and uncaring majority. We still
Like, it's very interesting too because like there's a lot of stuff that you could talk about with that. Like, I I do wonder. I like it's just one of these things. Like, it's not a lived experience that I have, and it's not a lived experience that people have today. Because like I don't really see people today getting denied a job on these grounds. And if it's happening at like a much lower rate than it was before. And a lot of this, like, it does start like with women having access to birth control. It's very fascinating stuff because it's like once you have the option of not having kids, then everything just sort of goes from there because you can focus on a career. You don't have to worry about getting pregnant. And that changed so much. The only like downside to it all is that we have like the need for two income households. If we could like get it to where people could live off of a one income house, if you could just be a one income household again and support yourself and then also a family potentially, that would be pretty nice if we could just do it like one income could support everyone. But things are too much now. And it's because we've basically got a system that's based on the idea that both mom and dad work. So
still live with the vestiges of that system. A system that allowed some to exploit their privileged status to bully others, and to build their own wealth on the back of those they could chain to low-paying jobs. A system that sucked workers dry, then tossed them to the ground in contempt. A system that assumed that some would prosper while others would succeed, that some people deserved to work while others did not. There are still those in Congress who advocate for such system, who say that if we reject that system, we reject America. The critics and cynics are wrong. That old system's time has passed. We are better than that system. We are stronger than that system. Together, we can fix the imbalances that plague our society. We can ensure that everyone in this country has equality of opportunity by ensuring that everyone has the right to work. Our corporations must no longer line their own pockets and pad their bank accounts at the expense of the workers they refuse to hire. Our companies must no longer tell us that the free hand of the market will solve everything, or that handing money over to the rich will allow it to trickle down to the less fortunate. We have seen the results of that philosophy firsthand. We have seen the skyrocketing unemployment, the fiscal mismanagement, the utter irresponsibility and its fallout. We have seen what happens when the market is left to its own devices. We have seen the injustices and wrongs that ensue. I know that some of my political opponents would like to call this plan irresponsible. I know they sling around words like socialism and Marxism and redistributionism, and they hope to scare you with those words. But isn't this what Republicans have been doing for decades? Like, isn't this exactly what they're doing even right now? Isn't this what Ben Shapiro is doing right now? Hey!
yeah, and this is like the thing too, like the socialism part. It's like if there's a social safety net, that's fine. And if there's like a public option for healthcare, that's fine. But my problem with like socialized medicine at the moment in the US is like I know that it comes with social responsibility. So it comes with a responsibility on US citizens to do their best to stay healthy, to treat themselves well. And people aren't doing that. So that's like where the big problem comes in, because the US is like the worst country in the world, as far as I'm aware, for obesity and conditions caused by obesity. It's also going to be like the worst. We're on track to being the worst country in the world for type 2 diabetes. And that's not like a condition necessarily related to being uh, a BMI over 30. But we're at such a point now where we have so many people who don't reach that BMI that are skinny fats, and they have like metabolic damage from eating sugar all the time. And it's just something where it's like, I don't know how we're gonna get socialized medicine unless we can actually, you know, get people to be socially responsible. The only thing I can think of is it has to be at the state level, and it has to start small. It has to start with small things like actual like health care, and not what I would say is like sick care. Like actual health care where you like prevent the illnesses from happening, where you prevent things from happening. Cuz that would be cheap, you know. It would be pretty easy. You can give people vitamins, cheap, cheap, cheap. Vitamins are not expensive. You can give people um free lessons on how to cook. You can give them lessons on how to buy food and cook it, even if they are super strapped for cash. And it's just like these little things. Like, I know that people who live off of, food stamps, that's how they get their food. When I would see them at my old job, it would be every time the SNAP benefits came in, they'd come into the store, they'd load up their carts, and it was all junk food. There weren't any beans in there. It was always soda. It was always just sugar and soda and just nothing of nutritional value. And they'd spend the whole card on just the worst stuff constantly. And it's just one of these things where it's like, I'm not saying they can't buy that. I'm just saying, like, they need the education so that they know, like, you don't need this. This is not food. This is not food that is good for you. Buy some canned beans, buy some canned vegetables, buy things that are frozen, you know. And it's we just need to start like simple. We need to like educate people on like how to buy healthy food that's cheap, how to cook the food, because we have like a childhood obesity epidemic in the US. And that is just all down to the fact that people don't know how to cook. Cuz I'm not buying that 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds couldn't be taught how to cook and make dinner for their whole family. They could do it. They're smart. They're not dumb. Even in, you know, areas of the country that are like called food deserts. You know, there's been a study on food deserts that I've mentioned somewhere before. They found like a lot of the food deserts, you give them a grocery store, they just buy the same things still because they're not like unable to get healthy food. It's just getting that healthy food and actually cooking it and actually like doing something with it. Even if it's not like fresh produce, even if it's not like fresh meat, you know, it's still something that takes time to do. And because parents don't know how to cook a lot anymore, kids don't know how to cook anymore, No one knows how to cook. If you could get people to learn how to cook, that would be like the start of like some good socialist healthcare. It's like, but we have to figure out how to teach people to cook. People that don't have access to, maybe they don't have access to the best cooking equipment. Figure out like how to help them. Make it so that they can cook if they can't. Get them a toaster oven. Just little things like make it so that people can cook healthy meals at home. That's all part of it. But like doing insulin stuff, there's just a lot of things that like once you get down to like healthcare that we have in the US, it's never about prevention. It's always about treating the illness. It's about treating the symptom and hoping that you don't have anything else come up from that. So, I don't know. That's where the socialist medicine falls apart in the US is we could start it, but it wouldn't be efficient, I don't think. Cuz we don't have people that would take on the significant benefit with the required amount of social responsibility. Because when we're talking about healthcare specifically, I hate to break it to people that don't live here, but you can just kind of tell from our obesity rates that we're not taking our health seriously. We don't have that social responsibility yet. Maybe if we did, we could propose this and it would work because we wouldn't be doing sick care. But when we're only doing sick care, it's not going to be beneficial because we're just going to constantly have people go into the system for preventable issues, and people aren't going to be happy about it because they're paying taxes to cover someone else's insulin, not because they actually need it, but because they ate themselves to the point of needing it. So that's where the big problem comes in.
Hey, do you remember when Bernie Sanders was running and he was like, maybe, for-profit education, for-profit healthcare, millions of people dying, tens of thousands of people in like medical bankruptcy. As the richest country on the planet, maybe we shouldn't, And wasn't the conservative reaction to that kind of like, oh my god, Bernie's a fucking rat, he's a fucking commie, he wants to bring socialism to America, he's going to turn America into Vuvuzela within 2 weeks, and he's going to institute redistributionalism. Also, like, didn't conservatives call Obamacare communist or like socialist or whatever?
I don't know. I don't remember. I know that it's called socialist for sure. But I know it's fucking bullshit because I was promised a public fucking option. And I didn't get it. I didn't get a public option. I got a fucking giant check to the insurance companies that are driving the cost of healthcare up. That's what I got.
Like, this is incredible. Like, Ben Shapiro set out to write the character of Prescott as this unsympathetic crazy person, but Ben is so lost in his own little ideological echo chamber that he accidentally ends up making Prescott one of the most sympathetic characters in the book. Like, he tries to fix the economy using known and proven methods. He's against the war in Afghanistan. He wants to stop the US Army killing civilians. He wants to regulate the market. He refuses to invade Mexico because of cartel atrocities. And according to Ben Shapiro, these are all crazy positions to hold. Like, just...
It is. It's like... It's like one of these things, like, I'm getting at it from both sides. It's like, Ben, you can't... These things are good. These things are good, Ben. But at the same time, like I said, I don't agree with single-payer healthcare at the moment because I just genuinely feel like having a benefit that comes out of your taxes like that's going to be a very high cost to the taxpayer, and it's already like an American staple. Nobody wants to pay more fucking taxes. If you want to pay more fucking taxes, you're not a true American. And so that's where that is. But if you convinced enough people to say, yes, we'll pay more taxes for having the benefit of not having to pay for expensive healthcare, that would also come with a need for social responsibility where we figure out like one, how to keep people from getting sick, and two, it would require a bunch of people, a lot of lardos like myself. Oh man, you can't eat cookies and cake anymore. Like you can, just not as many. That's pretty oppressive. That's pretty oppressive. That's pretty fat phobic. It's like, oh man, if you can't fit in the waiting room chair at the doctor's office, you're not getting seen today. Uh, I've seen those videos. It's like, oh no, the chairs. I'm too big to fit in the chairs. They need to make bigger chairs for big people like me. It's like, no, just trim down. It's like, if you can't fit in the normal sized chair, like because you're like the size of 3 of them, that's a you problem.
How out of touch do you have to be to have these opinions? How out of touch has the conservative movement has become over the years? It's legitimately concerning. And speaking of that, before we turn on to the next character, Soledad, I'd like to say a few words about some worrying tendencies within the American conservative movement. Yeah.
Oh no. Oh no, we're gonna get it. This is the juicy stuff.
Trust me, this ties into the next chapter really fucking heavily. And I'm talking about conservatives' tendency to threaten with violence or outright terror attacks should things not go their way. For example, have you ever heard the phrase, if they come for my guns, I'll give them the bullets? It's a rather common form of essentially guerrilla dicking among conservatives.
Well, it's the proper response. It's my property. You're not taking my property. I don't care. It's my guns. You're not taking away my freedom. I'm not opposed to this. Come for my guns, you can take the bullets. Like like fine. I'm fine with this. Mostly because I'm fine with gun ownership. So.
Oh, and also, have you ever heard of this? Oregon
2019.
Republican threatens state troopers over climate change bill. Send bachelors and come heavily armed. And with the send bachelors part, he of course means that he doesn't want to create widows when he kills them. And I mean, what other group in America can get away with openly threatening the government? Like, imagine if this was said by the leader of some American, like, Muslim group or something. They would get fucking drone striked within 5 seconds. So yeah, among conservatives there is this bizarre entitlement to make terrorist threats against their own state. Enter...
No. Okay, that second one, sure, we'll give it to you. But no. I have a Second Amendment right. Someone to come take my guns. They can get the bullets. It's the whole Rittenhouse thing. You're walking around. You're armed. You're using your duty to flee. Someone grabs your gun. And you've already met this person earlier. You know he's coming out of jail. There's just somewhere shady, and he's not afraid to go back. Okay, and he's grabbed your gun. Do you just die, bro? I don't think so. He can take a bullet. He can take a bullet for grabbing your gun when you were using your duty to flee. Which is why I'm very fascinated in that case. It's like, this man is using his duty to flee in a stand your ground state. That is going to be an interesting case.
Soledad, Ben Shapiro's other attempt at creating a sympathetic character. She's this like California Central Valley pull up by her own bootstraps rancher whose ranch was ruined by government taxes and the Environmental Protection Agency cut off her water supply to save some fish. And so she went broke, she was forced to lay off all her employees, Mexicans mostly, and then Ben specifically tells us that one of her former employees takes his family to East Los Angeles where his son applies to a high school, where one of his classmates tries to recruit him into a gang, and then when he refuses, the other gang members beat him to death in the toilet. And Ben Shapiro doesn't specifically say that they were black, but when conservatives talk about gang members, I mean, we all know what they're talking about. And so Soledad's ranch goes...
Gun violence. That's what I'm talking about. That's where all the gun violence comes from. Comes from the cities. It comes from organized crime. It comes from drugs. And if we made the drugs legal, then the gangs wouldn't have anything to do with it. They would be out of business.
Goes bust, it dries up completely, and so listen to this. She woke up with the television blaring. Pictures of the blown out side of the Water Resources Control Board offices on I Street, First Street, in Sacramento led every news network. All of them. Even Soledad was somewhat shocked by the security video. It looked like something out of a Schwarzenegger movie, with cement and steel blasting into the night sky. Plumes of smoke and ash rose from the bombing site. Soledad was grateful that the truck had been completely eviscerated by the explosion, but she knew that the federal investigators would check the camera footage. It was only a matter of time before they did proper forensic analysis and traced the truck. There were no casualties. Soledad has insisted on a weekend attack to avoid any human toll. Okay, so first off, you don't know that. In fact, big office buildings usually have at least some people in them during weekends. You know, people doing some additional work that just came up. Lots of maintenance gets done on weekends so that the employees will not be bothered. Plus, there's pretty much always security present. So yeah, Soledad wanted to take revenge for her fucking dried up ranch in the Central Valley. So Rip, Dave, the security guy, fucking Laura, the receptionist, you know, Mike, and Mike, all plumbers, working on the toilets or some shit. Bill, the HVAC repair guy who was working on the roof, is now in low Earth orbit. Okay, so according to Ben, there were no casualties.
I'll be right back. The notion of healthcare, like healthcare is like fucked in the U.S. Okay, so first of all, like hospitals don't tell you how much they're gonna charge you for whatever procedure you're gonna go through. It could be $100 or it could be like $2,000, and it's never like clear as to why. And I've learned a lot lately. Like some of it is tied to the fact that like the people that make medical equipment don't just let independent people come in and repair it. You have to buy like a whole new thing that costs way more than it's worth. That drives up the cost of healthcare because you can't repair what you have. You have to buy a new one, like your fucking MacBooks. uh, and then there's just this other issue where the insurance companies can have bargaining power with doctors and stuff, but an average person walking in off the street has to pay like full price. That's just another issue because not everyone's insured. That's why I'm in favor of a public option for insurance for people that may not be able to get access to it. And it's just frustrating. It's like I'm okay with a public option for health insurance, but you know, it's like one of those things too where it's like I don't know how I would want it handled. And my suggestion would be to legalize recreational drug use, like cannabis, get that in the system, and then take all the vice taxes from cannabis, alcohol, and nicotine, and then whatever else you decide to throw in there. and take those vice taxes that we're already paying anyways and have that go towards the healthcare or things like the lottery, like have all that money go towards the healthcare. Once you start taking it from people's paychecks, that's when they're going to be like really, really upset. Because as I've stated before, Americans don't like paying taxes. And any American that tells you that they are okay with paying taxes is a fucking liar. They are not an American. They don't belong here. They belong in Canada. Send them up north. I'm joking. But it is true. Like it's a highly American value to evade taxes. That's what all the rich people do. But yeah, I remember too, like Sanders had a bill in the Senate, if I recall correctly, and it was just like a simple thing where it's like, hey, there's this medicine that's like really cheap in Canada that costs a mint here in the US. So why don't we just make it legal to buy medicines from other countries if they're cheaper? And that's like the kind of stuff I agree with. I'm like, yeah, why can't I just go with the cheapest option? That's why I want these hospitals to put out publicly what they do and how much their procedures cost. Then, I if I don't have like an emergency, but I'm thinking like, oh man, maybe I need to go get something checked someday soon. You know, I can save up for it. I can like get it handled and not have it be some giant emergency that costs $400 or more, which that's like a statistic where like 35% of Americans can't even cover a $400 emergency through credit card, through savings, through anything. And that's just another issue that needs to be addressed. It's like, what is causing this? Is it overspending on vices? Is it, you know, financial illiteracy? Is it an actual like struggle to make money? Where is this coming from? That's like a whole other issue, but it is just another thing to add to the list of problems that exist but have yet to be solved. And I don't trust universal basic income to solve it. That idea is just not going to work because you'd have to have so much money taken out of people's paychecks to make a universal basic income. It would be cool for the first little bit, but then the system wouldn't work after a while. You'd run out of funding. I'd imagine it at least. Like it just feels like it's something that would just eventually run out. It's going to be like Social Security. You're going to have people that don't pay in enough, people that pay in way too much, and then everyone gets it redistributed. And I just don't see it being like something sustainable. It's just one of these things that I personally would like to see like a model of it running before we like instituted it nationwide. And that's the same thing with like socialist healthcare, where it's like you're taking money from people's paycheck to cover hospital costs for everyone. And I'm not saying that it can't work. I'm not saying that the NHS is like a failure or anything, but I don't know how it all functions, and I just feel like you're already losing the Americans when you're talking about things that cost more in taxes. that's just where it is.
Which apparently makes this okay. Like, I'm not kidding, throughout the book, Ben Shapiro insists that Soledad is a positive character. Like she's some role model to be followed or something. Or some tragic victim whose hand was forced by the evil government. Which is like, oh yeah, dude, like her ranch was cut off from the water supply, so, you know, she had no choice. She had to blow up a civilian building. That was her only recourse. And then Ben Shapiro mentions that the local farmers basically just organized this terrorist militia and now they had a standoff with SWAT. Which, pardon me if I'm wrong, but isn't this exactly what the Taliban do? You know, a countryside militia facing off the US government's troops? I mean, for fuck's sake, the book began with a standoff with the Taliban, where the Taliban blew a hole into the embassy. But apparently, according to Ben Shapiro, when conservatives do the exact same thing, it's suddenly okay. And so he writes, the media went absolutely berserk. The governor called her a domestic terrorist, put her on par with Al-Qaeda. Like, once again, Ben tries to portray this as some crazy liberals getting triggered over this or something, but he ends up refuting himself, because what she did is exactly what Al-Qaeda does. That's exactly how Al-Qaeda thinks. They just are on the wrong side, I guess. So when Soledad says, because I'm not going to stand for my government, yes, it's my government too, violating my God-given rights to water my land, like, if you replace water with rule over, you'll get what the Talibans think. And then the Taliban will build a big bomb and put it in a truck and like drive it into a civilian building and like explode it there. And that's bad because, you know, they're brown and Muslim. But when Soledad does it, hey, whatever. If the Taliban fighters show up to like threaten the US troops, then, you know, that's bad. But if some redneck dumbfuck militia shows up to fucking threaten to shoot the SWAT team, hey, that's okay. They're just exercising their God-given rights. According to Ben Shapiro anyway, because once again, he was the one who wrote all this. But then Ben Shapiro, once again, boy genius, by the way, cannot keep his own fucking narrative straight. At the beginning of the chapter, he writes that Soledad's water was turned off, and so this caused the whole thing to dry up and her cattle to die of thirst. But towards the end, he writes this. Soledad expected to be arrested that day. But through the night, nobody approached the house. The drones kept circling. The cameras kept rolling. They shut off her phone lines, and her electricity, and her water. So her ranch does have water after all.
This could be another thing too. Like, this could be Ben Shapiro not knowing how it all works, but it could be that there's like 2 water lines on the property or multiple water lines on the property, and there's one for the actual house, but not one for like where she would need it, like at like the actual like ranch area of it where you'd have the facilities for watering the, like if it's a farm, it would be that giant sprinkler system. It would be the line that goes to that giant sprinkler system that covers the entire land. That could be cut off, but the stuff at her actual house wouldn't be cut off. So that makes some sense, because I know there are people that have multiple water lines on their property. And they'd shut off one, but it's like, okay, well, you still need water for yourself to drink. And it's just one of those things, like, the amount of water that these places would use is a lot. So trying to transport water from like your kitchen sink all the way over to wherever the actual like cows are, to where the crops are, trying to use that water from the sink to try and water all the land. That picture, like, I'm just thinking about it. That doesn't work. That wouldn't work, and that's why she's like probably fighting to get the water turned back on, because it would be multiple water lines, I assume.
At least some. So then, even if it's not enough to irrigate the fields, how come her cattle died of thirst?
Because it's probably like not enough to give to her cows. She probably has like a lot of cows that need tons and tons of water. It would be like so much effort trying to fucking go from this tap. Like, it's like, how much water can you actually carry to the cows at a time? Like, how much help does she have? How fast can they fill up a bucket with water from the actual like tap? these are like things where it's like, you know what? It makes sense to me that like this is like a giant headache and she can't like properly water her cattle with sink water. And she just wants the stuff at the barn turned back on.
I mean, it's established that she isn't exactly this like cattle magnate or something. Like, how come she couldn't fill up a bunch of buckets in the kitchen and like give the water to the cattle so they don't die? Like, seriously, Ben, how could you fuck this up? Like, the lack of water was the central conflict within Soledad's arc.
Like, I don't know how many cows she has though, because they probably drink like 20 gallons a day or something ridiculous. They'll drink a lot, I'm pretty sure. Maybe not 20 gallons, but a lot, a lot.
Anyway, let's just move on. One last character in this complete train wreck shit show. Levon. Alright, so Levon is black.
Oh no, it's in Detroit.
And so far, black people in True Allegiance have had the following roles. They beat up high school Brett when he tried to befriend them. They beat this Mexican kid to death when he refused to join their gang. And then one of them, Yard, tried to beat the fuck out of high school Brett for no reason. And then there was Derek, who just acted like a fucking weirdo for like 2 seconds. Enter Levon. A drug-dealing racketeer gang leader who extorts money from local businesses. Oh, and he's also a race hustler who uses Black Lives Matter and the death of a black child to basically just officially take over the area he lives in. Holy angels on the throne of light. Like, if I wrote this down and showed it to someone and then told them, yeah, this was written by the KKK Grand Wizard or something, they would believe it. I would believe it. Hell, no one would have any reason to doubt me. And also, what's the deal with Ben Shapiro and African Americans? I mean, just the way he writes about them, is this some kind of like suppressed fetish or something? Is he into like interracial cuckoldry? Because so far every black person is like, oh yeah, let's say that the big black muscular man just abuses the little pudgy white boy. Like, it's so awkward to read. Oh, by the way, Levon is 6'3" and 220 pounds of shredded muscle. And he orchestrates the death of this black kid by a police officer, and he plans it all out and executes it to the point where he gives the kid a toy gun, he tells the kid where to go, when to be there, what to do, and then he disables all the cameras around the area except for one, which will record the police officer from behind so that people will not get a good look at what's happening. And let me just read this section. It's going to be a double trouble, both from story and from a technical perspective. Levon's smile never faltered. It's Shakespeare, he said. It means you'll learn to trust me. Crawford laughed, loudly this time. Then he looked at Levon curiously. Quoting Dad Honkies, he twinkled. You might be useful yet. 2 hours to the end of the shift. Ricky O'Sullivan looked down at his watch. And oh my god, look at this! This is how Ben Shapiro thinks viewpoint shifts work. No space, no line break, no indent, no symbol. And like, if you want to be a dramedy writer in Hollywood, I mean, I guess if you wanted to be at some point, you might think it's a useful skill to be able to indicate the end of a scene. Alright, so we're on O'Sullivan now, I guess. And he gets dispatched to this gas station where there's this black kid, and just listen to this. He looked through the glass door, saw the racks of Funyuns and Doritos. The cashier's counter lay behind a thick pane of double plexiglass. Nobody sat behind it. Then he heard the voice. Hey, pig, it said. The voice wasn't deep, it was the voice of a child, and the kid stood outside the door of the Quick Mart, legs spread, arms hanging down by his sides. A cute black kid wearing a Simpsons t-shirt and somebody's old Converse sneakers and baggy jeans. You know, if a black kid wears clothes, it's obviously someone else's. He must have stolen it or something. You know what these darkies are like.
You know what? Let me pull it up. Let me pull it up. This is like a perfect excuse to just pull it up. This is where we're at. All right. Let me see. That's not right. There we go.
Well, he was riding his bike when there was a lightning strike, and now he reads real fast. He's good at science and math. Black Doctor.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. Where exactly did he get the bike?
He stole it.
Right, that's what I thought. You know, I don't think we're going to be going down the road with Black Doctor.
Really? Damn it. Okay, I got one more.
Go ahead.
It's called Jewtown.
Nope.
How about Too Many Lesbos?
Nope.
What's the deal with Mexican tits?
Go away.
That's my humor right there. I love WKUK. Rest in peace, Trevor Moore. That's fun. Wait, what? Where is it? There it is. Gotta fix my screen again. There we go.
On his hip, stuck in those baggy jeans, was a pistol. It looked like a pistol anyway, but O'Sullivan couldn't see clearly. The light wasn't right. He could see the bulge, but not the object. O'Sullivan put his flashlight back in his belt and put his hand back on his pistol, the greasy handle still warm to the touch. "Stop right there, pig," the kid said. His hand began to creep down towards his waistband. O'Sullivan pulled the gun out of its holster, leveling it at the kid. "Put your hands above your head. Do it now." "Fuck you, honky," the kid shot back. "Get the fuck out of my neighborhood." Then he laughed, a cute kid's laugh. O'Sullivan looked for sympathy behind those eyes and found none. "Hey, you know what these darkies are like? They have no empathy. They're like animals. They're gonna beat your child to death at high school if they don't join their gang." "Oh shit," O'Sullivan thought. Then he said, "Hands up, right now." The kid laughed again, a musical, tinkling noise. "You ain't gonna shoot me, pig. What, are you afraid of a kid?" And hey, you know what? Aside from the honky and pig and whatever, the kid has a point. Like, so far, this situation is that
Kuro doesn't fucking care. I need to finish that game.
there's this kid sitting in front of a store or something. He has something in his pants, which kinda looks like a gun, but the light isn't right. But hey, it could be a toy gun or a fucking Pez dispenser for all O'Sullivan knows. And this kid makes one move. Like, his hand like twitches towards his pants, and O'Sullivan reacts by fucking pointing the gun at him. O'Sullivan could feel every breath as it entered his lungs. "No, kid, I don't want to shoot you," he said, "but I need you to cooperate. Put your hands above your head, right now." The kid's hand shifted to his waistband again. O'Sullivan's hands began to shake. "Get the fuck out of my neighborhood," the kid repeated. O'Sullivan looked around stealthily. Still nobody on the street. Totally empty. The sweat on his forehead felt cold in the night air. In the retraining sessions at the station, they told officers to remember the nasty racial legacy of the department, be aware of the community's justified suspicion of the police. Ah, so it's the liberals' fault. I see. Thanks, Ben. Right now, all O'Sullivan was thinking about was getting this kid with the empty eyes to back the fuck off. "Go on home," he said. "Oh yeah, dude, go home as I point this fucking gun at you. Yeah, that's how that works." "You go home, white boy," said the kid. His hand moved lower. And just listen to this. Just listen to how Ben Shapiro lays the groundwork to justify a police officer executing a kid.
Like, there was a real case that happened after this book was written where, like, a 12-year-old, this isn't the Tamir Rice one, but some 12-year-old kid and some 22-year-old man were just out shooting a gun in the middle of the night. They got the cops called on them, and they bolted. And the kid was the one that ended up having the gun. And this is like a real-life situation where it's like this kid is running away from the cops, and then he turns, had the gun in his hands, and it's like one of these things. It was like an actual, like, split-second, like, thing. I would hate to be the officer in that situation because the kid had the gun on him and he turned around and pointed it at the officer, and the officer shot the kid. And from what I remember, the kid didn't make it, but it's like actual, like, gun crimes are terrible. Like in those situations where like the police have to get involved and they have to shoot, and it's just awful. It's one of these things where it's like I'll tell you it's awful, but that doesn't change like the fact that I'm fine with people owning guns, because I don't think that people using them inappropriately is the reason we should be getting rid of them. Because most gun owners just own the guns, and it's like if you wanted gun control, I would say handguns are the ones that you should keep track of. Rifles and shotguns, like no one's like strapping those. And if you see someone strapped with one and they're alone, okay, and it's not like an incident where so many people had them, you know, it's just one of these things. It's like it's telling me, I gotta sleep and do squats in the morning.
Suddenly, O'Sullivan's head filled with a sudden clarity, his brain with a preternatural energy. He recognized the feel of the adrenaline hitting. He wasn't going to get shot on the corner of Iowa and Van Dyke outside a shitty convenience store in a shitty town by some 8-year-old, bleed out in the gutter of some city the world left behind. He had a life too. The gun felt alive in his hand. The gun was life. Yeah, okay, so this poor, trained, professional police officer had no choice but to execute this wild animal because he was afraid for his life otherwise, and okay, whatever, fuck you, Ben. The muzzle was aimed dead at the kid's chest. No way to miss with the kid this close, and oh my fucking god, dude, like, listen to the shit you're saying. Like, it's a fucking police officer going, oh yeah, okay, it's okay, dude, I can totally shoot this kid. Like, how fucking sick and twisted do you have to be on the inside to look at this and it's like, oh yeah, O'Sullivan is the good guy in this situation, obviously. The muzzle was aimed dead at the kid's chest. No way to miss with the kid this close, just 10 feet away maybe, still cloaked in the shadow of the gas station overhang. Kid, I'm not going to ask you again. I need you to put your hands on top of your head and get on your knees. Fuck you, motherfucker. Like, okay, what kind of fucking kid is this? Like, is this some kind of Iraq veteran, battle-hardened 10-year-old who doesn't give a fuck? Like, what the... Like, I've never gotten a gun pointed at me yet, but I can imagine it's pretty fucking terrifying. And then if I'm a black person in America and then a police officer points a fucking gun at me, like, I would have trouble keeping my shit together, much less to insult and, like, instigate the cop. And if all this happened to me as a small child, like, I would just shit myself. But, we all know what these blacks are like. Fuck you, motherfucker. I'm serious. The kid's hand was nearly inside his waistband now. Don't do that, O'Sullivan said. The kid smiled, almost gently. Don't. The kid's smile broadened. The hand moved down into the pants. Get the fuck out of my hood, the kid cheerfully...
Like, if it turns out to be a real gun, this is like something that's like, oh no, that's terrible, but it'll be a not gun, probably. Because Ben couldn't write something like tense. And it should be like more tense. It should be like a thing that like he's actually holding something, like he's actually got it in his hands pointing at the cop. And it's like, oh no. Also, like, if that is the case, like this body cam footage would like exonerate the cop, unfortunately.
Repeated, I'll cap your ass. Kid, I'm warning you, O'Sullivan yelled. Put your hands above your head. Do it now. The roar shattered the night air, a sonic boom in the blackness. The shot blew the kid off his feet completely, knocked him onto his back. O'Sullivan reached for his radio, mechanically reported it. Shots fired. Officer needs help at the gas station on Iowa and Van Dyke. Oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God, O'Sullivan repeated as he moved toward the body, the smoke rising from his Glock. He pointed it down at the kid again, but the boy wasn't moving. The blood seeped through Homer Simpson's face, pooled around the kid's lifeless body. The grin had been replaced with a look of instantaneous shock. His hand had fallen off his waistband with the force of the shooting. In it was a toy gun. The tip, orange.
Oh no, he's literally like rewriting Latimia Rice shooting, which did not last this long. Like that one is also like that could have been handled so much better. And it's just one of these things like that one's frustrating. It's like this kid has an orange tipped gun. It's a toy gun. And there's like no hesitation in that video. None. There's no put it on the ground. There's no command for that. It's just pull up, pop, pop, kid's dead. And it's like that's like one of those things. It's like that would be worthy of a riot, like we had this past year, but not one where you go burning down businesses. One where you go to the police station and you demand that they like take responsibility for it. You demand that they fix their shit. You break shit at the police officers, like where the police officers work. You go to that precinct. You go to all the police stations in that area. You make it known, like you're not taking this bullshit, you know. But you got to be careful with that kind of destruction, because that comes out of your tax dollars, and you don't want to have to pay for those taxes. So it's best to just make it well known that like something's going to be done about it.
Plastic. Really? If only we could have established that before shooting the kid. Like, man, if only we had some kind of armed group that we pay who are like public servants and they go around keeping up the order and they are specifically trained to deal with.
Like this is like a cringily written situation. This is horribly written. It needs to be a thing where it's like he's already got the thing pointed at the officer, but the officer can't see it. Like he's already got it out of his pocket. It's in his hands. The officer sees it. It looks like a gun. It looks like a gun. He can't see it clearly in the night, and it's like, oh no, like please, like don't move. And then the kid moves. That would make way more sense. And then to have like some small child throwing out these insults, that is like also like a load of bullshit from Ben. It's like the way you do this, the way you make it where the officer is the sympathetic character here, is you just have it where it's already out of the pocket, and the officer like notices that the kid has a gun in his hand and is looking at him, and he's like, drop the thing, and the kid just insults him, and it goes on for a bit because there are a lot of instances where it does go on for a bit, and it goes on and on and on. But when the kid finally like jerks his hand up, it's just one of those things, like split second reaction. You can't tell it's a toy from the lighting and everything, and it's a terrible situation. It's a tragedy. And you know, we have body cam footage for this reason. It's like, can't tell that it's a toy from far away, and the kid was pointing it at the officer, and it was like a split second thing. It's like kid jerked up to shoot. It's like that's how you do it. You don't have like this whole dramatic thing. It's like make it where like it's already known that it's a gun object, not just like a unclear object. And then just this whole thing where it's like the orange tip is plastic. Make it so like he painted the tip of the plastic. Make it so that there's no tip, but it turns out to be a toy still. It was just painted over.
These situations so there's no bloodbath. If only we had those people, but unfortunately we only have this like fucking street executioner militia. It keeps the dark age in check, but maybe we could do better, And by the way, at the beginning of the book, Ben was complaining that the Taliban want Sharia law in Afghanistan. But then if you're a kid who like messes around with his pants and, shit talks a police officer, that in the West is apparently a death sentence. So yeah, dude, hashtag bring Sharia to Detroit. Yeah, this kid didn't have to die, just have some mujahideen haul the kid to a Sharia court, and then, I don't know, get him a whipping or something and issue a fine to the parents. I mean, of course, there would be some scars on his back, but hey, in the decadent West, he would fucking die. Thank you, Ben, for showing us the way forward. But then the chapter continues. For a brief moment, O'Sullivan couldn't breathe. Oh, man. This is divine.
This is well before this, but
fine irony. The gods do have a sense of humor. Like, seriously. When he looked up, he saw them coming. Dozens of them. The citizens of Detroit, coming out of the darkness, congregating. He could feel their eyes. And then, when O'Sullivan heroically defended himself against a black kid and executed him, these wild animals started climbing out of the blasted ruins of what used to be a nice white neighborhood.
ugh. Gross. Gross. That is like, eh. Too much cringe for me to handle.
Yeah, so this is True Allegiance by Ben Shapiro, everyone. Later on, he also shits on Mexicans a little bit. Like in Ellen's chapter, she's working around the border. And then there's this huge migration crisis there because Prescott said that children will not be deported. And that causes the cartel to start seeping through the border. Like, why? I don't know. But those who did make it swamped the available federal resources. The Border Patrol spent their days trying to help doctors screen for disease, trying to dig up enough formula for babies, trying to patch up wounds and find blankets, and keep the incipient gang members from knifing each other. That meant the border had even less personnel. Every day, Ellen heard complaints from ranchers along the border. They had been finding bodies on their land, or ripped panties from rape victims, or drugs. Yeah, and then it goes on like this. It's funny because the US is currently breaking international law on the southern border. The agreed upon procedure for migrants and refugees is after crossing the state border, you show up to a police station or a town hall or something where you officially submit your asylum application, at which point you're transferred to a reception center and you wait until your asylum claim gets judged basically. And then you're either granted or denied entry, and those who get denied get officially deported. Now, what the US currently does is they catch people on the border before they could make it to a place where they could submit an official application, and then they hold them in inhumane conditions. And
those are 24-hour processing facilities that are overcrowded, and it's terrible that these people end up in that condition. But let me tell you, like, I think it's a little better than having to sleep out in the wild. Like, as bad as this is, compared to sleeping on nothing out in the wilderness in the heat, that's like a marginal improvement. So.
And then they usually just get deported back to Mexico. By the way, most of the illegal immigrants in the US are from visa overstays, from people who entered the country with a visa but then just decided to stay there. So Ben's fearmongering with this immigration wave doesn't really match up with reality. What a shock. But then later on in the book, Texas Governor Bubba Davis, a big bear of a man, burly and fun-loving, just declares a war on Mexico essentially and sends in a bunch of National Guard into Mexican territory. But hey, I mean, once again, it's okay because it's Americans doing it. If a conservative governor invades another country, that's okay. If a conservative domestic terrorist blows up a public building, that's okay. If Americans violate the border, that's okay. Speaking of which, at some point in the book there is this. Who are they? The same people who shut down your farm. The same people who attacked you. Those people are Americans. It isn't American to do those things. America means more than being born here. It means believing certain things. Yeah, so this is Ben Shapiro directly telling us, stepping out from between the pages and saying it to our faces, that people he disagrees with are not real Americans. Liberals, progressives, leftists, people who don't want war in Afghanistan, people who don't believe that America has some exclusive global rights to violate every international law. Those people are not real Americans. And this notion has a lot of very funny implications, such as if the next attack on the Capitol is successful and the far right does take over America, well, they might just start getting rid of these un-American individuals. And at that point, get ready, because after
Man, that's like just as cringe as Ben Shapiro's book.
President for Life Donald Trump,
It was an attack on the Capitol. It was a fucking riot. It wasn't an attack. And people laughed as soon as like a shot was fired. They were like, "Oh, y'all mean business. I'm not brave enough to stick around."
and his VP David Duke will institute the Work Freedom Program for liberals, and you and your family get shipped to the Liberal Collection Center as you're ushered through the brick.
God, this is like the part that I was waiting for. It's like, oh, right, because the Republicans are Nazis, of course. People that like Donald Trump are literally like the same people that would have supported Hitler. Sure.
Gate, you look to your right, and this is what you will see.
Yeah, sure.
He's a libertarian, by the way. So this is True Allegiance from Ben Shapiro. I would tell you the rest of the book's story, but there isn't one. But the book itself provides an incredibly enlightening and, I would say, extremely disturbing insight into Ben Shapiro's mind. He's okay with domestic terrorism if he doesn't agree with the American government. He thinks Americans who disagree with him are not real Americans. He also thinks that black people are these like out-of-control animals. He's okay with invading Mexico. He's also okay with killing Afghani civilians. He's also a gigantic war hawk. But there's one more thing about this book that really irks me. I myself am an aspiring author. So far I've spent months outlining, world building, practicing my prose, reading books about how to write, watching lectures about writing and taking notes. Like that snippet I showed you earlier about the maid and butler dialogue. That was from Brandon Sanderson's lectures on writing. They're super useful. I've been learning about characterization, dialogue, how to properly deliver exposition, how to make the right promises, how to have satisfying payoffs. I've been working at my craft hard. I've been practicing, learning, trying new things. And so I absolutely could write True Allegiance, and I could do it much better. To the point where it would be an average okay thriller that's kind of entertaining. That's my current skill level. But I don't think that would be enough for me to get published. For that, I would still need to improve my skills, which I'm doing right now. But then along comes Ben Shapiro, spews out this literary diarrhea, and then it's immediately accepted and published without ever checking for even basic formatting problems through this conservative publishing house, which is basically a safe space for conservative authors, because in the meritocracy of the publishing industry, no one in their right mind would even touch their work. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'm all Shapiro'd out. I think this book actually gave me PTSD, but the main thing is that I made it through. And if you like my content, please don't forget to subscribe, and I'm going to see you at some point.
That book is awful. Like, just from what I've seen, the book is awful. It's cringe. It's very, very bad, but it's like the ways it goes from there, it's just that is definitely like things that I would not have considered. Like, now the idea is that he is like fine with the Middle Eastern war. He's fine with like bombing civilians. I could see that from Ben, but it's like it's the whole like race stuff. It's the whole like race baiting stuff that gets me. It's like I don't think Ben is coming from a place where he's genuinely like he's genuinely over here like, oh, these people based on their skin color are animals or whatever. I think would be more accurate is just he's very insensitive and his views on the issue are not very nuanced. It's like, oh, I hate Ben. I hate Ben so much. It's just one of these things. It's like he says I'm a libertarian and he's so not. That's like the first part of it. I don't know. It's just I can't get to the frame of mind where there's this like horrific, awful far right terrorism going on in the U.S. It's like it's a bunch of bloviating. I'll be honest. Like that's what I see. It's all bloviating. Even when people were like going into the Capitol building, it was all pomp and circumstance. There was nothing of significance that was going to happen from it. And nothing did. One person got shot. And I don't like the only thing that separates the thing that happened at the Capitol from anything else that happened in 2020 is the fact that politicians shit themselves. And that's like the whole thing. That's like why I find it absolutely fucking hilarious. And I laughed the entire time it was happening. Not because I supported these people going in a riot, but because it's like, man, we've had so many riots this past year where no one did anything about it. Now now that the politicians that could have done something about it have one at their front door, they suddenly give a fuck. That's my whole thing. That's why I find it funny. But to think that they have like significant power, like they're actually gonna perform a coup, like they're actually gonna take over, that idea is just laughable to me. So yeah, yep. To my friend who told me to watch this video, I didn't keep my promise. This stream didn't go on for 4 hours. But hey, 3 hours ain't bad. And in summary, it was very cringe. It was super cringe. It's like the Billy Madison thing. I am now less intelligent for having learned of Ben Shapiro's book. And I'm not surprised that Adam views like American conservatives as super super far right because it's a difference of experience. Because as an American, as someone who skews more liberal than conservative, I'm like, I understand that being liberal in America is still pretty far right in Europe, so I can get that. I'm not anywhere close to a Jimmy Dore or a Bill Maher, but I'm definitely like I'm to the left of Trump, and I'm very to the left of like the people I have to deal with. So not Adam. I'm not to the left of Adam. But as far as Ben goes, I can't stand Ben Shapiro. But I know all these people in my family, they fucking eat his shit up. They eat his shit up. They love him. And it's like I'm trying to get them to someone that's like more sensible. I'm trying to get them to people like Matt Christensen because like Matt Christensen, he's very conservative, but all of his arguments come from like a basis in like some grounded form of reality. He's not like espousing extreme views. He is mostly just super super constitutionalist, and that's what I like about him. I like constitutionalists. I like people that love the Constitution. And I hope that we find more people that are understanding of this position where it's like, hey, it's fine to tell people that if they steal, they come to take your guns, they've all been lost in a boating accident. And then if they still come for your guns, if they are raiding your property under the suspicion that you own the wrong kind of firearm, they can't have the bullets because that's what the Second Amendment is for. It's the right to own your firearms. Yeah, somewhat regulated. But I don't know. I'm the type of person, I'm fine with people owning guns. I want people to be able to own automatic guns. I don't care about that stuff. I think that if you're like a violent criminal and you have like a history of doing violent things, that your ability to access ownership of a firearm should be 0. But if if you're like someone who has never committed a violent crime, if you've like been arrested for stuff, but it was like you had weed, you had some drug problem, I can't see that as being a reason to ban you from owning a firearm. So that's just where I'm at on that. It's why I'm like really interested in the Kyle Rittenhouse case, because that is like a very, very interesting case that's coming up. And I'm almost certain that Adam would view it as like, you can't claim self-defense in this case or something, because that's what like people on to the left of me have said. Adam might come down and agree with me. It's like, oh, Rittenhouse is a self-defense thing. I haven't heard Adam's opinion on it, but I've heard a lot of socialists talk about it, and basically their opinion boils down to he should have just died, bro. It's totally unrelated. This is a sleepless thing. It's like very early in the morning. So thanks to the person that recommended this. I would say his name, but he's asleep off in Slovenia. And I didn't ask for permission to say his name. So thanks for stopping by. Have a good one.